Right again. Oh, we're going. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to DC Fans United. Today is a very special day. It's my first live broadcast with guests, and I'm really excited to talk to these two gentlemen. First off, we have #1 Marmaduke fan. Now, I've been really impressed with his YouTube channel. I really recommend you guys check out both these guys' channels, and I'll have links for them. So #1 Marmaduke fan, really cool YouTuber and an artist. And then the guy there choke holding the walrus is Larry King. He's an awesome dude. I've been talking to him for a couple weeks on Twitter, and I wanted to get their thoughts on a current situation going on Twitter. So a really famous, well-known writer, comics writer named Gerry Conway, and we'll definitely talk about his work. But we're also going to talk a little bit about his recent Twitter interactions with fans. So because this topic was inspired by a video by #1 Marmaduke fan, I'm going to turn it over to him and let him talk a little bit about his interactions and thoughts on Gerry Conway.
Thank you, DC, and thanks for having me on. Well, boy, with how Twitter's going, it already seems like we've had six more crazy Twitter arguments since then. So, yeah. So, Gerry Conway, I interacted with him well, actually, you interacted with him first. That's when I first noticed it. You kind of politely asked him to, maybe cool off on the politics since he's a comics professional, and he got really snippy with you. And,
that is kind of. Sorry, that is kind of what started it, and then Yellow Flash made a video about it. But sorry, go ahead.
Right. So I haven't seen Yellow Flash's video yet, but I did see Captain Coming. So I'm guessing that as a result of YouTubers with higher subscriber counts making videos on the matter, Gerry then went back to Twitter and tweeted sort of these oblique questions about alt-right trolls. And the second I saw that, I thought, oh no, I know what this is. This is a leading question. It's designed to kind of trick you into accidentally saying you're alt-right. But I wanted to believe that there was a genuine spirit behind the question. Like he honestly didn't know what people were talking about, or he was upset that anyone would object to the term social justice warrior. So I thought, well, there's at least a remote chance that he's asking this question honestly. And so then I thought, well, what's the best thing I could recommend to him? And my first thought was Thomas Sowell's book, The Vision of the Anointed. And the reason I thought of that wasn't because I just wanted to name drop Thomas Sowell and say, oh, see, I'm so woke and cool. I've got a black conservative on my side. I name dropped that book because it was directly relevant to the topic of people who get obsessive over things, or who think they have a vision for a perfect world, and that vision takes over their whole life, right? So it seemed like the perfect...
sorry, but just along with what you were saying, when you brought up that book to Gerry Conway, you didn't say anything about the man's race or really his politics. You just mentioned the book, right?
Exactly, because that was irrelevant. The reason the book was relevant was it's directly about the topic that Gerry Conway was talking about people who have an attitude which leads them to go after anyone and feel like anything is morally justified. The ends justifies the means. And then of course, you saw it, that Gerry Conway immediately made this about Thomas Sowell's race and insinuated that people like me only mention Thomas Sowell. We only trot out Thomas Sowell because we're racists trying to persuade people that we're not racist. And I was a little shocked at first because in my thinking, if you mention someone's name, if you mention, here's the name of a book, then the normal way a conversation would go is you could talk about the content of the book. And maybe you could say, oh, well, I don't like so-and-so. I think he's wrong about this stuff. But Conway immediately took it to those who read Thomas Sowell are racists who are trying to disprove their racism. So at that point, there's no way the conversation can go but down, and it definitely went down from that point.
Well, it's really strange too, because you're talking to a professional writer and you're just recommending a book. There's a pretty good chance he's already read it, and the conversation could go from there, or he would read it and get back to you.
Mhm.
But that's not how it went at all.
Breaks my heart.
Yeah, and that's really the saddest thing about it. He's got a really great body of work that I know we've all read, at least some of. But unless you had more to say on that, I was going to let Larry speak his piece about the same topic.
Yeah, I don't want to restate all my points from my video because I figure people can go watch that. I feel like that's a pretty good summary of my drama, my personal drama with Gerry Conway. So, Larry King, I want to hear you talk. Come on, bud.
All right, man. I usually hijack streams with my bombastic personality. Apparently, I got invited for all time from a couple people's houses for being way too over the top. I'm like, either I'm all quiet or I'm too much. It's like there's no middle ground with me. I can't have small talk. It's either I got to be the center of attention or I'm going to be blending into the wall like camouflage. But
Okay.
but this whole Gerry Conway situation, I didn't come across it till I just heard people popping off about it, and in doing so, I would, kind of did some investigation. I had some quote unquote sources, like somebody that brought it all together, screen capped, archived, and everything like that. And I was laughing my ass off. I know people were upset. I was laughing my ass off, calling people bot. And like, if the guy's trolling, he's the best damn troll I've ever seen. And the back of my head, it came to me, it's like, this is the guy that got the death threats for killing Gwen Stacy. I mean, this guy, he's had bad fan interaction for, 40 years now? So this kind of thing, like, somebody, even in a very political, very soft way of saying, like, hey, you have a horrible opinion. I'm trying not to cuss here. If you have a horrible opinion, you need to change that opinion because you're losing customers. Yeah, I don't care. Go away. And I laugh. To me, that's funny. It's like I let the free market sort it out. So when he's calling people, basically, it's like, the idea is like, if you're a comic reader, more likely you're for social justice. And he is right. He's not calling, like, that makes you a social justice warrior. No. It's like, do you want somebody that happens to be gay to be bashed in the head with a brick because they happen to be something? No, nobody wants. Very few want that. Right. I've known a few that like that, but what he's saying isn't 100% wrong. And it's one of these things. There's a lot of black and white. I like to deal in black and white. Certain things are black and white. Child molesters. That's all. Like, that's black and white. There's no middle ground. Right. It's like, well, you have to feel sympathy for them. But when it comes to this kind of thing, we're dealing with a creative person created, wrote some of the, incredible stories, the death of Gwen Stacy and everything. I mean, I think, was 3 Spider-Man movies basically had reference to it. Video games, the movie, the video games, movies, the TV show, other comics.
He wrote a lot.
He wrote a lot. Co-created Firestorm.
Yeah.
And all this other stuff. And this guy, very prolific as far as creators go. There's a few out there that are like that, from that I guess you could say, second generation creators. Because you had like Ditko. I mean, you had Ditko, Kirby, Stan Lee, the rest of them. They did some stuff in the Golden Age. They, a lot of them did stuff in the Golden Age as well, the Atomic Age and Silver Age. He was like the Silver. Conway's like kind of that more like that Bronze Age guy. Yeah, kind of middle ground between. And so,
especially in DC, he wrote a lot in the 70s. And 80s.
Yeah, I was looking through the. I think he did a screen cap of all the stuff he had done.
And that was just part of it.
And I was like, good God Almighty! And it's like, because it's like issue this through 15 or something. So it's like, I mean, most writers, even let alone artists, can actually stick to a schedule nowadays. Yeah. And when they do, it's like they beat a dead horse, like with Bendis on. When Bendis was on Iron Man, it's like, oh God, just go ahead and get somebody else. And then, oh yeah, we will. Dan Slott, no! So people freak out about that. But I look at it this way. There's a lot of people, and I'm not saying you're wrong to tell, like, hey, maybe you need to chill out. Because I think he knows it, he just doesn't care. And that's why I don't only follow people that, I didn't follow people I agree with, but
I didn't even tell him what to do. I was just... Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm trying to be, in general terms, there are people like, you're going to lose business, bud, if you act like this. It's like, fine, go away. Don't want you. And I find it funny, just the brashness of it, because there's a lot of people, very wormy people, very creative types. They want acceptance, they want love, they want to be showered with praise. He's got his at this point. He's not making any more comics, really. This guy ain't, his best days are behind him, in life and in creativity.
His best days are probably behind him, but I was just looking on Wikipedia, and he was writing for Marvel as recently as 2017 and DC as recently as 2016. So, he wouldn't have to be finished. It's really strange, I think that's probably the one thing we can all agree on here is it's really bizarre the way he's acting, especially at this point in his life.
Yeah.
So King, sorry, you're kind of seeing in Conway that he's having fun. Like you see Conway as kind of smiling and knowing a bit about what he's doing as he's doing it. Right?
Is that the explanation?
I think it's a little bit of both. I honestly think he is fed up because there's a lot of people, as we've seen this weekend. This weekend's a perfect example, proves kind of the point. People like going from, oh my God, Antarctica Press is the best thing ever, to burn it to the ground. And am I wrong? I mean,
no.
Right.
It was in less than 24 hours. It was like in a 12-hour period. It went from, let's support Antarctic Press. It sucks that they aren't going to carry Jawbreakers, but we still got to back them, to they're literally the devil, like
the worst of Marvel. Yeah, like I've read some stuff like that. It's like, you people are ridiculous. It's the hyperbole Olympics. It's just going on, and everybody's juicing,
Yeah.
And to see Gerry Conway, because I'm looking at it's like one of his tweets is like, so general question, why does the alt-right imagine it's an insult to call someone a social justice warrior? Isn't justice a good thing? Can we all live in society? Isn't this another way of saying you're fighting a good fight? I accept as honorific. And to him, these are the people to come up. He grew up during, when people forget, the Democratic National Convention in '68, they were cracking skulls in Chicago. The Democrats, not the Republicans, the Democrats. This is during the Vietnam War. And a lot of writers, look at Jack Kirby and Joe Simon. They created Captain America. They ripped off Captain America from the Shield, which is an Archie Comics character, patriotic character. Basically, he was the first patriotic character, if I'm not mistaken. You could say Uncle Sam, the poster, is the first patriotic character, kind of, sort of. But they were getting death threats, because they were speaking out, being political. You look at the old Superman comics. I'm talking about this Golden Age stuff. The first issue, he breaks into a guy's house because the guy's about to be executed wrongfully in the electric chair. Breaks into a guy's house, trespassing, grabs the guy, prevents the execution. So he's for justice. And then there's another where he goes in. There's these tycoon mine owners, and he goes in and leads them into a mine, collapses it, and tells them he won't let them out unless they make the conditions better for the workers and pay them better. Basically, he's threatening to kill a bunch of mine owners. That's like Antifa kind of stuff. If you want to look at it, you want to break it down. So when they say, like, oh, old comics are like that, and everybody's like, no, they weren't. Yes, they were. If you want to boil it down, they were. And I'm pretty sure Gerry Conway, I don't know his personal history, because I don't think, it's kind of weird to go through somebody's personal history. Oh, let's see, dig up some dirt. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure he'd probably protested back in the day, because a lot of these writers, I think he was like a New York guy, so definitely. It's these city guys. He ain't in the middle of the mountains, hunting elk, and then going back to type on the typewriter, call New York comic, Spider-Man or something.
Because he's pretty old. Even back in the 70s, he was writing for DC Comics. He might have, had a job, not been able to protest.
Yeah. So, who knows? Honestly, who knows? But
other than what he's written, I didn't look up anything about him.
King, you've gotten at something really interesting, and I think it might be something important for people who just care about comics generally to talk about. So let me throw this out there and get your thoughts. So okay. I talk about social justice a lot on my channel because it's something of real concern to me. But people who are not social justice warriors can make the same dumb mistakes social justice warriors can do. So, I see social justice warriors as people who are really, ready to go online and scream people down and say, conform to my politics, or I won't buy your comics. But it's possible for people on the, left, right, and center to do the same thing. So when you're talking about how you kind of are laughing at Gerry Conway, and you kind of, it sounds to me like you're kind of appreciating the willingness to push back, the willingness to not just be, Mr. Nice Guy all the time on social media, and you see a value in that kind of, I guess, attitude or just way of conducting yourself, right?
Mm.
All right.
Yeah. Well, the idea is, I think I know where you're getting at, but I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
All right. So did you have an opportunity to see what I said to Gerry Conway?
I did not. I tried to find that one. I could not find it. I remember you saying something about it, but
I'll hit you up with that later. But one of the things I wanted to say to Conway is I'm not going to boycott your books because of this. But one thing I said is if the man came into my house and got in my face and said the same things to me, he still couldn't undo how meaningful some of his stories were to me. I'm not the biggest Conway fan. I was a Spider-Man fan growing up, so I became familiar with him through that. So I think what you're getting at is that I'm connecting with. It's kind of ironic because you're kind of taking Conway's side, but I'm actually agreeing with you because I don't think it's good to have an attitude of saying, Gerry Conway, say exactly what I think you need to say, or I will not support your book. There's a whininess to that. So one of the big things that I wanted to talk to Conway about, because you're right, maybe there's a sense in which Conway is just having fun and having a laugh. Like, what's it going to matter at this point? He could literally flip off everyone, and is that going to make a big difference to him at the end of his life? Probably not. But the thing I think about a lot, and it's because I was an art student and got exposed to this a lot, was I see the social justice mentality of today as being a different sort of animal from the kind of old school liberal / progressive hippie of Conway's day. So one thing I'm worried about is sort of that kind of like that old school lefty vibe, that we could say Conway maybe represents. I don't think that the millennial age social justice warriors are going to let them get away with that for long. So and I just see that in just all their interactions with people. Everything's got to be politically correct. Everything has to be said just so. Every pronoun must be correct. And so one thing I tried to tell Mr. Conway is, you can say that you are a social justice warrior, but that doesn't mean that social justice warriors are going to give you a pass on problematic elements in your work. And I pointed back to Gail Simone's Women in Refrigerators.
That's right.
Yeah, and she names him as an example of the sexist trope. He's probably the most famous example in the history of comics of the sexist trope of killing a female character.
She called him out specifically by name in that article, right?
Yep, yeah. He is named on the site. And I had art professors who did not care one whit about comic books, but when they heard I was interested in drawing comic books, what they would take that to mean is, oh, well, we should teach you how to make progressive comic books, because they see politics as the thing that makes art have meaning. If your art isn't political, it's not really art. So I was actually introduced to the Women in Refrigerators blogs by feminist art professors. And then I would would look through that list and I would recognize names from my childhood, and I couldn't believe it. So Gail Simone has had a ripple effect beyond people. DC Fans United. When I look at your channel and I look at your interactions with guys like Conway, you are a comics lover. You dig comics. You talk about comics. Your channel is doing that. Now, I am a comics fan. I was as a child, but I was one of those who took a break in college, and then I was exposed to this weird SJW art world. And for them, all of you guys suck, and it doesn't matter if you're left, right, or center, because they see the personal is political. They see everything you read and everything you love and everything you enjoy as problematic and needing to cater to their whims. So that was what I was worried that someone like Conway might miss, because you say, oh, there are all these nutty kids on the college campuses, and if you're not there, okay, so there are a few nutty kids on the college campuses, but it's not the kids, it's the teachers. So I am clicking with what Larry King is saying about Gerry Conway, pushing back a little bit, not just willing to be Mr. Nice Guy all the time. I think there's a value to having a little pushback, but I'm just worried that people like Conway to these weirdos on the college campuses. You know, Conway's a sexist. That's how they would look at his work, and that's how they're going to teach his work forever. So that's why I was kind of disheartened by my whole interaction with them.
Well, and that's what's so ironic about it. You have the co-creator of The Punisher going after people for posting guns. You know, he's done all kinds of writing that would be considered anti-feminist, and yet he wants to not just be in the bandwagon with these folks that would attack him, but pull the wagon, you know, be out there in the front of the parade. And it's just really bizarre.
Well, that's the problem. The problem right there is, even though he co-created The Punisher, you got to think that's Punisher's inspired by the novel, Death Wish, not the movie actually. I think because Punisher came out before the movie, but he was inspired by the novel. People, just like with Rorschach, the Al Moore experience. Rorschach's supposed to be this horrifying. This is the kind of hero you don't want. This is like his version of Batman, in a way, this separate version. And that being the case, people totally did not take that from it. It's like, yes, this guy is he's seeing the world in black and white. He's killing child molesters. Oh, he's like, you're not locked up. I'm not locked up here with you. You're locked up here with me. Making him a cool character unintentionally. That's the Punisher. Punisher's a villain. He was a villain. He wasn't an anti-hero when he first created. He was a villain, straight up villain. And then they met, because that's the problem. Marvel always makes their villains sympathetic to a degree.
DC does too, usually.
Yeah, well, DC, I like them when they do it less so. It's like this, the straight up madman, not this. Oh, he's a complicated character. Don't give me that. I want a villain. I want the scene chewing villain. But with with the Punisher and everything else, these are he probably is one of these totally since the Punisher's stuff. She's like, oh, I hate guns. What's a good villain for Spider-Man? Oh yeah, guy that carries guns, that kind of thing. And it backfired. That probably irks them. The fact that Punisher, and also Marvel apparently they don't pay very well as far as royalties go. So all the Punisher movies, including the Dolph Lundgren and all that stuff, he probably doesn't see, he maybe sees $5, that kind of thing. Because that's apparently what Marvel's has been bad at that for years. Everybody's like, oh, Marvel's the greatest thing ever. I'm like, yeah, unless you created something and you want to actually be reimbursed, or get your original art back, or have your name and full credits on a project. Because until there was a raise around the same time as the Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster stuff, with the stink on the first Superman movie, the Stan Lee was getting created by Stan Lee for Captain America. That the Red Brown Captain America for the 70s. So Stan Lee got creator credit on that stuff. That's how ballsy they were. Because who cares about Joe Simon and Jack Kirby? Stan Lee created everything. Stan Lee did this. Stan Lee, that's the kind of thing that goes on. And
even Steve Ditko for the longest time, right? Spider-Man was just created by Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Really? Okay, if you say so.
It's scummy at tactics, but what can you expect from business? It's business though. And also Stan Lee's the owner's nephew, so nepotism. It's not what you could do; it's who you know. Anybody who says Stan Lee's a great writer, they're out of their damn mind. But that's neither here nor there. But we're talking about Gerry Conway this time. But the problem with Gerry right now is, I'm not saying he's 100% right. I do like to see that pushback, like you're saying, Marmaduke. I like that pushback from somebody who, near the end of his life, and also he's opinionated, very opinionated, and people coming after him, and he's just calling them bots. Oh, they're using these are advanced bots using pulling words out of the internet, out of the ether. And this is great, and how much that would irk somebody, because I've seen you were mentioning people seeing even though he would on campuses, he'd be viewed as this chauvinist, sexist, oh, he kills women, he killed Gwen Stacy, it wasn't Peter, it was Peter's fault, it was Gerry Conway, he killed Gwen Stacy. Even that, but what does that mean? The left eats their own. Same thing with the right everybody eats their own. It's like,
yeah,
white people that there you go. But
I'm really trying to weave just kind of a moderate position through all of this, and it's really hard. I don't know, it's weird because, like Marmaduke was saying, I'm just focused on comic books, and I get on Twitter and it's all culture war 24/7.
that's a sad state of affairs right there. But lately, it's been like that, and I think you have a creator like Gerry Conway coming out of that tumultuous times of the '60s and '70s. So people forget how crazy. I mean, you had the you had bombings, you had domestic terrorist groups. Yeah, they were called freedom fighters and all this and that. You had the Sudanese Liberation Army. You had, I think, the Weather Underground and a bunch of other stuff in the '60s, blowing up college campuses during the Vietnam War because they were doing they had military contracts with DoD. But you could say the same thing, like you had government contracts, even with the Department of Agriculture. They still attack that stuff because this is how radical stuff was, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's so crazy now." You want to see crazy? Imagine you didn't have like you don't have a campus alert. I mean, now it's cell phones. They're on campus, and they get oh, watch out! There's a bunch of beret-clad people carrying sacks full of bombs, and they're going to blow up the agricultural building at 11 o'clock tonight. That kind of stuff.
And then on a different day of the week, the National Guard will come and shoot a bunch of the students. So it was a very chaotic time.
Yeah, and now it's it's still chaotic, but in a different way. I think the signal that with that signal to noise ratio or whatever, it's like people are just
dramatic now. We all have a way to broadcast ourselves, and a lot of people take advantage of that just to be dramatic.
I think some people don't need a voice. Like, I've gotten to that point. It's like, you know what? You should have your voice taken away, at least suspended for a while, because it's like some people that's all they do is screech, that's or reeing as people do. But
yeah.
But I've seen like lately, I've just seen people get worse and worse as far as they'll find like complaining about Next Wave agents that, hey, oh, that's the first Marvel SJW book and stuff like that. I'm surprised they haven't gone after God Loves Man Kills or other books. Like that's see, they're putting that stuff in the comics even back then. And I was like, oh God, really, people. Eventually it'll get that bad,
well, you bring up a good point. One thing I'll never forget was one of these live chats, and I was watching it. I forget whose channel it was on, but they had John Malin on. And they were asking him questions, just different, comics-related questions, and they asked him what his favorite, trade back was, and he said Kingdom Come, which is a great answer. I love Kingdom Come, but even back then, which wasn't really that long ago, Mark Waid already had this huge stigma on him. So for John Malin to say something complimentary of Mark Waid, everyone didn't know how to respond. The whole chat just got quiet for like a minute until they changed the subject. It was really something to behold.
Yeah, and now there are people talking about how they want to destroy Kingdom Come and everything like that. You basically burn everything down. And I saw little beginnings of that. Like you catch an aftermath of the whole Gerry Conway situation, seeing beginnings of that, and it was embarrassing. I'll admit, back in the early part of the year, I got caught up in a little bit of this stuff, and then it was like from my Temple of Doom, when Short Round sticks the torch to Indy's side and wakes him up from the black sleep of Kali, and I was like, oh my God, what was I doing? This is dumb, because I got caught up in a little zeitgeist. It was fun for a bit, and I was like, this is so bad. This is so dumb. This is going to backfire, and it has backfired. 5 months later, but it's backfired. And to see people just flip flop, I really have no thoughts of their own. That's the biggest thing. And if I see a lot of people that they're upset with the whole Gerry Conway situation, I learned, not the same. Don't meet your heroes, but kind of like that. Don't follow your heroes on Twitter. Don't follow people you don't like. There's certain people I want to still enjoy you as a person. It's like it's just like you have a friend, and you're like 99% of the time your friend's cool. Now 1% of the time you're like, oh God, why am I even friends with this person? And that's how it feels like. And if that's the case, like if I don't get the whole hate watch or hate read. I can watch something bad and enjoy it, like Street Fighter the movie, like that kind of thing. I can enjoy that kind of stuff, but to pay $5 or to suffer through a Twitter feed of $5 for a comic or suffer through a Twitter feed of someone just ranting and raving just so I could reply and get that thrill of maybe riling them up or getting blocked. And I used to do it too. I don't do it no more with the whole like, oh my God, look who blocked me. And it's just, it's not for me. And I try not to impose what I feel. It's like my own philosophy. maybe somebody will like, hey, you know, maybe we can reevaluate theirs, or it might just solidify what they believe, which is fine. But yeah, I just
a lot of what people are looking for is just to solidify what they already believe, especially on social media. But let's let Marmaduke get in a few words. What do you have to say? No, I don't mean it like that. But
no, I mean I do need to.
Well, I love that Larry King is kind of. This is what I see as the strength of. I hate the term comics, so I'm just gonna say comics people on Twitter it's not a group think, right? So yeah, kind of when I hear King talk, what I hear him saying is, you know, of value. At the end of the day, how important is Twitter? You know, we come away from it, maybe we've been heated, but is it that important in the long run? And I'm kind of of divided mind, because on the one hand, Twitter is horrible. I like to use Twitter because I have fun on there, and I see new comic books, and I see cool pictures of art. But I think because of the way Twitter was built, nobody really knows what the heck we're supposed to use it for. It was the cool kid site, and then Barack Obama got a Twitter, and every news outlet and politician had a Twitter, and then it was sort of the hot takes site. I think my only counterpoint to King would be, I still view a professional selling a book as being different from a person giving their take. And the problem is, what if you are a creative person and you have, you know, hot takes, and you like to make fun of people and have a good time? And my thought would be, if you want to sell someone something, you should church it up. I think I'm pretty much in agreement with Diversity in Comics at this point, that you should view selling comic books as more like selling hot dogs than like selling conceptual art. I think it's the left that tends to have the view of art and comic art, that it's this sort of majestic, high poetic thing that, you know, you stupid people can't understand. And I look at comic books as they're fun, and they're things that cost money, so you should be willing to sell them to me. So I get the vibe that just because a pro doesn't say something very professional, that shouldn't be a black mark against them forever. I had a rough interaction with, you know, Pat Zurcher today, and I would forgive Pat Zurcher in an instant and go back to his books. But I can't deny that when, you know, I've got $4 to buy a book, and I see a book by a guy who, you know, insinuated I was a Nazi one time, even if I like the guy, even if I like, you know, guy or girl, if I like their art, if I like their stories, it's just weird. It's like, without having a formal boycott, it still sticks with you, and you still figure, you know, there's another book I could buy. And not only are comic books competing with comic books, they're competing with, they're trying to compete with internet piracy. They're trying to compete with YouTube. They're trying to compete with video games. This is a delicate time for the industry. So if you care about comic books succeeding, I think it would be good for. I'm almost at the point where if I were a, you know, CEO of a comic book company, I would be at the point where I'd say, you do not have a social media presence, or the company will essentially give you this guideline about what to tweet about. That's kind of like fastidious. So I can see how, you know, Larry King, you might like dislike something like that, because it seems, you know, really uptight, you know, stick up your butt kind of a thing. But I want people who sell stuff on the internet to make selling stuff their primary goal. And then if they want to go, you know, they can create the #1 Scooby-Doo fan avatar if they want, and then they can yell about Trump all day.
Well, I do think it's a little weird. You know, they often say, well, it's my personal Twitter, I can say whatever I want. And that's true, but they wouldn't have tens of thousands of followers either if they were just a random person. You know, people look them up in the first place because they saw their name on the cover of a comic book.
Yeah, I think a lot of I do disagree with you and Richard in that fact that comics should be like hot dogs. You know, I know it's a generalizing term, and it's like, you know, you should just sell it, straight up business, no emotion and everything like that. But you got to think, to run a business, you have to worry about, you know, sometimes you have a lean month, even if you're doing everything right. So, whoa, it's gonna get good. Oh, you just gotta get good at running a business. I mean, sometimes there's factors out of your control, and also you're picking up books that you're going to have to you're paying for, and you pray customers will come in and pick these books up. So you order 20 of Wildcat, 20 Wildcat comics or whatever, and then 2 people come in and pick it up outside the ones that already have pull lists. So you got 18 books sitting on the shelf collecting dust that you paid for, that you can't return. You can't get money back for them. They're just going to collect dust, take up space, and your shop's already got limited space. You got to store it. One of those storage buildings and everything like that. You go to 24-hour storage, and so this stuff keeps adding up, and you put stuff in the back issue boxes, and that stuff ain't moving because nobody wanted it to begin with. They don't want it for $1. They don't want it for $5. And to treat comics like a consumable item where you eat it, digest it, it's gone. That's like going from one of those Nathan Famous hot dogs that are about a bun bigger than bun length to one of those Vienna sausages. Still paying the same price, but for a Vienna sausage. You know what I'm saying? That's what it feels like with comics. And most people don't take the hot dog or the Vienna sausage and get it graded and slabbed and put up on their wall because they love the art. You put it behind that museum glass and all the protective coatings and all this and that, or display it in a spinner rack. You don't do that to hot dogs. And I'm in the mindset, and it's hard not to get somewhat political. I'm trying to get delved into it, but
can I stop you there for a sec? Because it's really interesting. You're saying it's not like selling hot dogs; it's more like selling fine art. Well, then, so much more so than, if you go to buy a car, the car salesman isn't gonna call you a racist and insult you. It's almost like you're making the argument even stronger. If you're trying to sell a high-end product, wouldn't you want to be even more professional? You go to a jewelry store, they aren't wearing T-shirts or anything.
No, but the thing about it is you wear the uniform and the uniform in comic store. Like one of my guys at the store, he wears like a Kevin Owens hoodie, even though it's 80-something degrees and humid because it's the South. It's Wilmington, North Carolina. Memory Lane Comics on 201 Princess Street. I believe that's the address. Good store, really good store. Coffee shop right across the street as well as a cheesesteak place. Good parking too. Plug for them, even though whatever. But
hey, it's cool.
Hey, but that's the thing. You get these, you get shop owners that will lie to you. Oh my God, that was a great book. You buy it, and they do that to you one too many times. Or maybe that is their opinion. And you pick it up, you read it. It's like, I paid $4 for this garbage, And it's like, they got to hype it up. Even you got to order books. That's the thing about, you got to eat crap to be a pro. You have to, you have to deal with crap. But then to be a pro, you have to eat it. And eventually, some of them get tired of eating that stuff. And when it comes to comics in general, especially if you're a retailer, you got to buy books that you have. Like, this Batman book sucks. I don't want to, get it. I don't want to have it looking at it on my shelves, but I got to because my customers do. And
sure.
That's one of those things. Well, some people say, well, that's like the bake the cake argument. Like, if you're a religious bakery, you don't believe in homosexuality. You have to bake a cake for a homosexual couple, or you'll get fined and discrimination, whatever. I'm of the mind of, oh, there's somebody. Oh, you won't bake me a cake? I'll just go to somebody else. But no, the litigious nature of America's known for 2 things: guns and lawyers. There's a bunch of there's more lawyers here than pretty much anything else. Everybody's part of the bar association, and it's to tell somebody you have to stock this book, or if you don't do this, you don't do that. And then it's kind of these. Let your wallet speak for you. Okay, you don't want my business, I'll go someplace else.
It's kind of like, as far as it sounds like you're talking about Jawbreakers.
Well, a little bit, but yeah, it's like what I'm talking is like the main thing. It's kind of related to that as well because it's kind of hard not to. It's everything's bled into it.
Yeah.
But there are like speak with your wallet, and with Gerry, it's like he was saying like it doesn't work that much to begin with, even though he did work like you said for DC like last year and then Marvel like 2 years ago. Even with that, it's not as pro. There's people that still do some work from time to time, like Tom DeFalco and Ron Friends, and the guys that did the Spider-Girl book, the good Spider-Girl book, the one from the 90s, the one that spun out of What If. And these guys still work, but they are not the the figureheads of companies. Like with Gerry, even though he has characters he's created on screen, it doesn't. It's like there's nothing. I mean, outside of certain horrific stuff, there's nothing he really can do. Like, oh my God, he's pushing customers away. Look, what customers?
Well, that's why I was talking to him in the first place initially, because he wrote the Legends of Tomorrow comics, and so the CW show Legends of Tomorrow is basically based off of that, and I think he's got a writer credit on that too. So I don't know. It's like he's still got. I mean, to me, if I were a writer for a TV show, I would be so nice to everyone, and I would only be talking about that show. And I don't know if is that just not normal? Like, why
that
wouldn't
might be naive a little bit. I'm not calling you naive, but that idea might be a little naive considering you got to think if you are. There's a lot of people like there's that saying. Like, I've seen this very common. People saying, "Oh, if I was doing this, I'd be talking about it all the time."
Yeah.
Well, you see people doing it. And they don't do that. It's like, they got to take jabs at something or get a little political or rant about a movie or TV show or game, sports, whatever, video game or sports. People to talk about one thing. I've followed people and then unfollowed them because they will talk about only like, oh my God, you got to pick up my comic. It's great. Oh my God, it's great. Have you seen this? Oh, this is fan art from a comic. Oh my God. Okay, we get it. I don't follow you just for updates. This isn't, this is why I don't do the whole newsletter thing because that's all it is.
Some of these pros, it's not even 50 or 20% of their feed is self-promotion, like, come on.
I think a big part of it is how desperate you are for cash. So if Nudge, like the guy who made Minecraft, he's a multimillionaire, right? He doesn't care at this point if you buy or don't buy Minecraft. He's already sold the rights to Minecraft. It's someone else's business now. When the guy who creates Minecraft is first starting to build it, he's all about wanting it to succeed. He wants his weird little indie game that no one's heard of to be a success. Then when he's a success, he feels more at liberty to speak his mind. And especially once he's left the project and he's no longer part of Minecraft anymore. So maybe comics pros are kind of on a sliding scale like that, where the closer they are towards extreme success, the more willing they are to swap the shit with people or be a little bit more open about their politics. I get what King says when he says you can have it can be dull to follow someone who only talks about here is the 100th panel of the comic I'm working on. But at that point, I would follow them based on whether I like their art or not. If I really dig their art, I'm going to follow them, and I'm going to enjoy getting that glimpse into their workstation. I sort of dream, if Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo had a Twitter or a YouTube, I would watch them just because I would want to watch them work, and I'd want to see things go from a marble block to an artwork. So that to me is the appeal of watching someone who's in comics online make things, is that I love comics and I want to see this come into existence. But a Twitter personality, I don't know, like Mombot or something, someone who is known for having a laugh and making dank memes and roasting people who are like stuffy politicians. They have a very different appeal, and I think that's part of the problem with Twitter. Ooh, we still here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just heard something go quiet for a second. Sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, I just mute my mic sometimes if there's like background noise.
Sweet. So we've talked obliquely about the Antarctic press situation, and that's kind of like the latest thing I've noticed.
Right.
So it'd be fun. I think it'd be fun for us to just swap thoughts on that. So I'm noticing that a lot of people are saying, well, let's boycott Antarctic press, and it's an old hat argument. Yeah, before people were arguing about boycotting in comic books. I come from a very deep red state background, so I would remember going back decades conversations about boycotting. Maybe it was Fox over putting South Park on TV. Right, so I'm seeing echoes of the culture wars of the early 1990s today happening in comics, and a lot of people, I agree. I don't want to boycott something just because I'm upset about something. I think it's kind of dumb. So what I want to see people who are creating work I resonate with. I want them to be able to succeed, and I don't want them shut out of the industry because of a political attitude. And King, I think you've correctly said that it's possible to be that left or right. It's possible to be sort of a lunatic who is 100% politics all the time. But I think the imbalance I see the mainstream comics industry as significantly to the left of what it was. Now, even if you say, well, there in the 60s and 70s, there was this really radical, underground type of stuff, blowing up buildings and stuff. And I agree. It's not like bad stuff came into existence when millennials started graduating. But I'm worried that the industry is moving toward this point where a political lens would define everything for everyone. And you couldn't possibly question it. Women will be drawn with exactly this way to avoid, male gaze and to create body positivity messages. So when we talk about the debate in comics, even though I appreciate Larry saying that it's possible for people on the right to be, salty and stupid online, I still identify myself with the right because I see the left, this academic postmodern left. I see that movement or that gaggle as creating just anti-stories, stories with no depth to them, stories with no meaning to them. That's what animates me. And I really want to see guys like Rags, Zombie, and POTUS Thumb. I want to see them succeed. I want to see Jawbreakers succeed. I want to see everyone who is a creative person, whether they're creating YouTube videos or whether they're writing stories or whether they're making art. I want them to be able to succeed without bowing at the altar of this really weird feminist cult is how I think of it.
See, I know what you're getting at, because that's one of those things. You're dealing with he's dealing with an industry right now that, everybody's like, oh, with the culture war. There was no war. It was a coup. It was in the middle of the night. It's like with when the Baltimore Colts left in the middle of the night and moved to Indianapolis. That's exactly what happened. And it's over. There's no fighting. The only way to fight back is to do your own thing. And a lot of people don't want to do their own thing. They feel validation where it's like, oh my God, I'm not a real artist unless I'm drawing Spider-Man for pennies on the dollar. And then having the thing held over me, oh, you don't like this? We can get somebody from a third world country who can do it cheaper and faster. Because that's the thing, like, oh, they can't replace me. Yes, they can. They can replace you anytime. There's no one special in comics anymore. There really isn't. I mean, best artists don't even really work full-time anymore. They're doing commissions, private commissions for private collectors, if not for stuff like Mondo and other things like that. So everybody's like, where's the good artist? They don't pay them enough. The comics industry does not pay people enough. And those that they do pay, they're okay, they're good. Some of them are great even. But, with creators, like when those that bust their ass, like you've seen like Rags out of all of them is busting his ass, doing a thing, and he doesn't have the ability because some people like Richard, he basically used cheat code like in SimCity, get a lot of money, marketing. As far as the only thing he's really good at, to my opinion, is marketing. Can't draw, can't write, can't do character designs, but he's good at marketing, good at getting his name out there, good to get paid. And a lot of people say, oh, that's something to be praised. Nah, not for me. I've never liked the shark, the businessman shark, they always got to be swimming, the Gordon Gekko types. That's how I see Richard. And that's how I see like Stan Lee. And that's how I see, even though Todd McFarlane's like that, he could back it up with the art, made damn good toys that look great 20 years later. I still have a Solid Snake, Metal Gear Solid Snake in the box. And it looks damn good. And it has, that's 20 years old this year. And, the guy, he had a vision.
20 years ago, they made better toys than they make now, probably, anyway.
That's what's so sad. Everybody gives it to Hasbro and, was it Diamond Select? And they have, 500 points of articulation. They can't stand up on their own. They look horrible. Because there's so many joints, they don't look right.
Oh, Toy Biz. Those Hasbro Star Wars toys, EDS toys, making fun of, those look like trash.
They're horrible, but they're made in China. They're all this stuff's made in China, but it's like, I don't know if the Chinese workers have just gotten lazier, but I don't know. But as far as these creators go and seeing them do their thing, I'm happy for those that, in my opinion, and I hate doing that, but because if it's coming out of my mouth, it's like, assume I'm not speaking for somebody else, but in my opinion, those that put the work in and put the, like basically pay their dues. Rags pays his dues. Timothy Lim, even though he had his marketing and did t-shirts and design work and all this stuff before, Donald Thump, he's paid his dues. Richard hasn't, and a lot of people disliking him.
In terms of creating work, you see Richard. I'd grant that Richard had lightning strike. There had to be a lot of things which worked out just right for Jawbreakers to succeed the way it did. And I think a big mention of, and his channel, his channel, you can, people argue about the YouTube algorithms all the time. So the thing about Richard is he made a comic and everybody made fun of him. And when I read the first Jawbreakers, I kind of laughed a bit at it, and I thought, well, I like his channel, but I don't know if I would pay $4 for a book. And I think I have to disagree with Larry King. So the reason I decided to support Jawbreakers is there are two reasons for it. One is I looked at John Malin's art and I thought, okay, Richard's stories look better when another artist is at the helm. And the second thing I was thinking is what Jawbreakers meant for everyone is it's a way of saying no to a really controlling group. So EVS, he's a naughty boy. He's an alt-right Nazi. Well, John Malin, he's a naughty boy. Bleeding Cool's hit piece on him. When Diversity in Comics got those people on his book, I think he knew what he was doing, and I think he knew he was saying no to a really toxic element of the comic book industry, I think. So the problem is am I supporting Jawbreakers because I actually think it'll be good, or am I supporting Jawbreakers just as a middle finger to SJWs? And I've thought about that a lot, and I'm willing to give Jawbreakers Lost Souls a chance because I'm willing to give anyone at least one shot, and if he delivers a good book, then my DNC will have more credit in his bank for the next time he makes a Jawbreakers book. If he delivers a stinker, then I'll probably be less willing to part with my money. I think that I think DNC's role in everything that's been happening is that his YouTube channel was the no that I was looking for. I spent years kind of outside of superhero comics, and I'll grant this, I'm not the biggest superhero comic fan. I haven't read as much as a lot of other people in the community, but I was waiting to get back in, and then just hearing a guy make fun of Squirrel Girl art, but then also tell me, here's a good book. That it was like someone finally gave me permission. Oh my gosh, I finally know how to go into a comic book store and find something that isn't Squirrel Girl. So
you're kind of referencing like the good old days of DNC's channel when he would just make fun of Squirrel Girl or do Marvel before SJW or something. I mean, I still watch him, but it's like 100% Twitter drama now.
I didn't like the Twitter drama either. I perceived that as diminishing a little bit when he started focusing on Jawbreakers a lot. I think he was trying to church. I think a lot of things that people have to think about is how important is DNC to everything. I perceive him as the one who helped people who dislike awful comics, helped us say, okay, here's someone who's making fun of it. We watch his videos. This helps us. I mean, he's given language to people to describe some of these things. Like, it might be even hard to notice that something's wrong until someone looks at these comic books and says, well, hey, notice this. Notice how flat-chested this character is. Notice how this white guy is getting beaten the heck up by a woke character. So I still appreciate Richard to this day for the role he's played in getting people to come together. But I don't think that we can rely on him to be sort of a sole, what is it? Athanasia's Contramundum. You can't rely on any single internet figure to be this sole voice against everything you hate. You have to be an independent thinker, and you have to create content. So Oh, that's what. So when Larry King, praises Rag Zombie and praises Timothy Lynn, I'm on board. I want to see them succeed. I want them to see them do great. I want them to have top-selling books. I think I'd only disagree with him when he says that the reason I support Jawbreakers is I see enough promise in it that I expect to get a good story when I actually read it, and I see him as having a positive good for other people. So I found out about POTUS Thumb through DNC. I found out about Rag Zombie through DNC. So that role of just pointing people in the right direction and saying, hey, here's a good book, that does give something of value to other people who want to read good comics.
He is a unifying force, I think for whatever reason, that's why he's been so successful. I mean, the reason we're probably all talking today is because, one way or another we found each other, and it was most likely through DNC and the community that surrounds it. I mean, there was all these little mid-sized channels like Douglas Ernst and Captain Cummings and whatnot, and then all of a sudden it's like everyone went to DNC. About a year ago, it seems like last summer, it was just like, it got huge, and now it's just
why that happened though. It's the milkshake thing. I know it's
right.
Many things really, but
that was the big event.
But it's that kind of thing. Like what one example is the Tim Seeley, hack/fame. He did Batman and other DC stuff. I think did Nightwing as well. I'm not mistaken.
I'm a fan of Tim.
And
Seeley.
I like Tim Seeley. I do too. Like, this seems like a cool dude. And then me and my brother was reading the Milestone imprint. Things that never happened. Just trying to start shit. That's what he does. It's like, I'm just joking. It's just a prank, bro. It's just a prank. Oh yeah, buy my comic. And buy my comic to piss off at SJW. Because that's what it seems like a lot of people, they do. And it's like, well, is it art great? Yeah, Malin, like, I've looked at the cover that they did. Of course, it's promo. Maybe Malin was in a rush. Guns look horrible. Character designs are trash. Eyes, either they're covered or they're slits. There's it's the cheapest way around it. No foot is 1 foot is seen out of two portions of 2 feet. One guy has 6 fingers on one hand, or if that's the case, then he has, instead of a thumb, it's a standard digit, not an opposable thumb. So there are issues. The art's like, if you look at John Malin's work, I'm not saying the guy's a bad artist, but if you look at his work at Marvel, a giant among men, you look at him compared to the DC artists, Jason Fabok, EBS, did Action Comics. Not Action Comics, he did Superman. He's going to be doing it with Bendis as well. Not Doug Mankey. Oh, hell. He did the Bizarro family stuff. That artist. Beautiful work. Truly artistic work. Malin, working, 17, 20 years, give or take? Not a bad artist, but just, not my thing. But, if it was Liefeld drawing this comic, I'd be like, what, I'd probably be more interested. But it's like Liefeld, but not really. It's,
What do you think, Marmaduke? You're probably more in a more positive on Malin. Not that I'm disagreeing with either of you. I'm just curious what you think.
I support the Kickstarter, and I still click with what King is saying. Right, I will forgive. I have a very forgiving attitude toward bad art. Like if Daryl Ayo was nice to everybody, I could have been someone who would say, "Hey, Daryl Ayo, I dig your drawing. It's silly. It makes me laugh."
Little garden comics.
Right, those really creepy little weird comics, right?
Dude,
because
those things
they're terrible, but
they don't make sense though. I mean, the art is one thing, but they don't even make sense. If they, Peanuts, Charles Schultz put some good stuff together, but it's not because of the art. Like if Daryl Ayo did something like that, I don't know. I'm getting off on a tangent. Go ahead.
Well, I'm kind of making a weird point. So the point is that I come from this really conservative in terms of art taste. I believe there are objective standards to beauty, which made me one out of 100 of people in SJW art school think there's such a thing as an objective standard of beauty. But I'm a art tutor, so when I'm when I'm teaching, young people how to draw, they obviously don't draw very well because they're just learning the basics. So I don't want to just build up people's ego and have everyone gets a participation trophy award, but I talk about art where I say, okay, you're doing this wrong, but here's what's charming about your work, or here is I notice you like to draw action scenes in your comics, so you may what is it about action that interests you? So I dislike bad art. I try to critique bad art, but I try to be I want to encourage people to make art. I don't want them to stop making art because of my critique. I want them to kind of like take my critique and say, this hand sucks. And then I want them to go right back to making art. I want to see more, because that's how you develop the habits of becoming a great artist, is you draw until you get your 10,000 hours. And by the end of it, you develop that. So I look at Malin and I see weaknesses, and because I would judge Malin not just by the standard of DC artists. I would judge him by, I judge him by Michelangelo, but I would still support a book by a Malin, because when I go to comics, I go to them looking for a fun action story. I don't necessarily go to them with the same art critic hat on that I might when I'm going to a museum. But so I get where King is coming from. It might just be a matter of taste and how much it will take for you to be willing to part with your money for a book. Now, maybe the book comes out and the art is subpar, and I'll feel stupid about parting with my money. Or maybe the book will come out and Malin will really have cranked out something above and beyond even his regular work. So I'll review it when it comes out, and I'll be brutally honest. Even if I like Diversity in Comics channel, I'm not going to review Diversity in Comics books and pretend they're good if I think they're bad. I guess all I'm trying to say is I'm a little bit more willing to get burned, because I'm willing to give comic books a shot sight unseen, and that's meant I've gotten burned by a few SJW comics this year too.
One I didn't get burned by last year, and I put money towards this year, was the comic Time Cheetah. It's a time traveling cheetah, man cheetah, who just speaks and growls. And the last volume is freaking hilarious. So that second volume's I think still going on. It's already been funded, but damn fun comic. But
is that a Kickstarter?
Yeah, it's a Kickstarter book. It's Time Cheetah Volume 1, Secret of Stalin's Island. It's like a mixture of, best way I could describe it, if you mix Venture Brothers, old school Johnny Quest, and Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, all together. It's kind of like that. It's very fun.
Okay.
Very fun.
You'll have to link me to that later.
Oh, sure thing. But I looked something up, and everybody's like, "Oh my god," because of Jawbreakers. Yes, it made a lot of money. Okay. I guess also I'm very desensitized about life. I mean, I think about the massive quasars, gamma bursts, supermassive black holes. A solar flare that could cook us all. Like, I think of these things. Like, these things in my head. So I'm kind of also seeing dead bodies at a young age, brutally damaged bodies, car accidents, stuff like that. It's really messed me up. Also, just life in general. It'll take its toll. So, but I was looking through. It's like, okay, Jawbreakers, Lost Souls, 112-page one-shot graphic novel. The original graphic novel is what they should call it, but whatever. But going through, so you got 50-page Jawbreakers, Lost Souls. That is, and this is accompanied by 25-page story, Jawbreakers Book 2. So, who's drawing that? Because Lost Souls is being drawn by Malin, so that's 50 pages. Is that 25 extra pages? Is that
what Brett is drawing?
It might be, but not the most clear. But nobody cared, because I honestly think that they were just doing this to people. A lot of people were like, "Oh, this is triggering SJWs. Throw money at it, like it's a stripper on a pole. Throw money at it."
It's a movement book. I found that really interesting when Marmaduke was talking about that. How he really had to think about it. Was he buying the book because he wants the book? He likes Jawbreakers, or was it just to stick it to the other side, so to speak? And honestly, I have to think at least the majority of people are probably doing it, just to support diversity in comics and because they agree with what he's been saying. Not that the book is subpar or not worth it or anything. But I think if it was just another G.I. Joe type book that was just out there in the ether without all of this buzz and craziness, I mean, it's insane. With Arctic Press and everything, and comic store supposedly getting vandalized, and just on and on, without all that constant buzz, I don't think it would be doing quite as well. I mean,
I don't think it would be either. But,
I mean, there's just no way.
Well,
Alt Hero was that, and he had all these mysterious $5,000 backers, right? The art from Alt Hero looks bothersome. I can't look at it and just feel at peace. There's something always wrong about it. And yet,
I was thinking that too when Zach posted that he passed Alt Hero, and I started looking at it, and I was like, wow, this got a lot of backing. It doesn't really look that good.
Here's what's scary. This is what I find funny. I didn't know about the book. I maybe heard about it once, but didn't click. Something that happens. There's something going on. You hear about something one time. If it doesn't click, then it doesn't click, right? Well, that book, Patriotica, and somebody was talking about it, and I was like, okay, let me look this up. It sounds like it might be one of these, like, oh, it might trigger some people. Well, I actually looked at it. It looks like a damn good book. The art is great, and I'm like, this is just messed up. Patriotica, compared to Alt Hero and then Jawbreakers and everything, you look at these three books. Patriotica has better art, looks more interesting. Panels look great. Not saying Malin can't draw panels, maybe from script. That's another thing. He's working off of Richard's script. If you've seen his art, you've seen his stuff. Dear God, get a poser program. Get a computer to draw for you, and just But hey, who needs to learn how to do something when you can just throw some money at the problem? But but you look at Patriotica. The artwork's beautiful. I mean, it's like one of the characters, I guess the main character, she basically hulks out, kind of like what Fairchild did in Gen 13. And clothes ripping this and stuff. But the artwork is beautiful. Nobody talks about it. Nobody cares. And they talk about Vox Day's thing, but it's like mediocrity succeeds far more often than you don't want to be groundbreaking. You don't want to be the first. Here's the thing, Captain Cummins, he's kind of like that first, the anti-SJW comic guy.
Yeah,
he was. To Richard, you don't want to be the first step. That's the thing. You don't want to be groundbreaking because you are. They just step all over you. You still might have a prominent presence, but it happens.
He was definitely diversity in comics before diversity in comics was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was doing the thing before. Yeah, he was doing the thing before everybody else.
Patriotica. I just saw a thing for Patriotica 2, I think, is being made.
Yeah, they're getting that put out there.
Yeah, you're right. It didn't get much buzz at all, and it seems to fit this exact market.
Well, I think the problem is you got a lot of these people that they want something. They say I want something different, I want something non-political. But when you actually offer that to them, or have a creator that's putting out whatever kind of comic it is, like I'm talking about something, it's just supposed to be entertaining comic, whether it be a sci-fi book, whatever. You hear a lot of talk but no action, and that's the biggest problem. But somebody's producing, there is a husband and wife, and there's another artist as well. Patrick does a name. He's the artist on the book, but it's called Case File Arkham. It's it's like a noir film, but with Lovecraftian mythos and detective stories and stuff like that. Basically, a detective story. There's 2 volumes out. Wonderfully done. They direct sale everything. They're not looking out for, oh my God, I need a publisher. They're doing it themselves. It's like 2-person operation really. Patrick McAvoy, that's the artist's name. So it's them 3 putting out this comic, publishing it, putting it out, getting the funding for everything. Not looking for another company or this, that. But some people they need validation. I'm not saying Rags does. I'm not saying Timothy Lim does. I'm not saying any of these people need that validation. But there's a lot of people that want that validation. If you're putting out your own book, if you're sticking to it and you're making a profit, that makes you a pro. You make profit. Unfortunately, that by that definition, Richard's a pro, which also that works. He is kind of a man whore, or just a whore in general. Give me these shekels. Yes.
I always get the impression that you really don't like Zach.
Here's the thing. Do I absolutely hate him and wish, like, the Thanos thing turned him into dust?
Oh,
Not
dear.
really. But maybe somebody needs to humble his ass, because there are people far more talented. But that's the thing about life. Life isn't fair. And there's these people that will go around and just, like, they're white knighting him over all this. Like, you're white knighting a Marine who has at least 150. I actually did kind of a rough math. Everything, including the book printing, shipping the books out. I don't know if you knew this, but the rough estimate, I did a U.S. flat rate. So $7.05 per book. There's 6,221 books. That's because that's how many backers. That's not including T-shirts and other stuff as well. But so you're talking, that's $40,000 in just shipping alone. He's going to have to take care of storage. He's going to have to, unless he's getting paying somebody else to do it for him. You're going to have to take care. Good for him that Texas doesn't have an income tax, because if it did, he'd have to pay income tax on that book, on the profits he raised from the Kickstarter, from the Indiegogo, the crowdfunding, because it doesn't matter. Like, oh, this isn't a charity thing. He's making money off of this. He's so basically the takeaway, even though he made like 200-some thousand, the takeaway he's going to bank about 125,000-150,000, give or take, roughly that much to him alone. Which, if you boil it down, if you believe, say you get 300, like I think EBS said he got paid like $300 per page, and so you do, you do what, 20 page, like say, so. But here's you pay say $300 a page. That's basically like he's pocketing what a high tier comic artist would make in about 10 months or so, like a year, just round it off to a year. So he's probably like, like I'm talking like, the higher tier, like the John Cassidy's, that kind of thing. Not Jim Lee, because he's making that executive money too. But that kind of, he's up at that tier, which, and that kind of thing. So I wonder if, Malin might be the kind of guy, you pay me to do a job, I'll just do the job and go on. You got all this extra money, you need to pay up.
If it's a contract, he wouldn't have a choice. He probably signed on to do this before they raised all that money.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it probably is a contract, but as you've seen in like news stories and stuff like that, as well as like just legal precedent, if you can get a prenup, annulled, or a prenup just vaporized by a judge, but I have a prenup, you can't do this. You can't make me pay her more money. Yes, we can. He is, but it's kind of like also bullies shouldn't win. That right there. Somebody needs to punch a bully in the nose and make him choke on his own blood. Kind of Karate Kid style. Make his knuckles bleed. But no, it's you have people like, it's that kind of that, it's brought up. That's why I don't follow them. And that's why this stuff, it's like, it's like, but it pops up in my timeline because everybody else around me does. It's like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah. I consider you part of our, little community, and it's not like everyone in our community has to follow DNC, but you're definitely like amongst people who do. Yeah, but see, you don't have to, and I found out the hard way, you don't have to follow certain people to see their stuff in your timeline. It's like you can't escape them. It's like they're stalking you. So it's like Richard stalking me. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude, go away. Well, what do you think, Marmaduke? You want to weigh in on all?
I'm thinking hard, because what's interesting is Larry King is kind of offering a counterpoint to most of the people who are like not SJW Comics Twitter. The thing is, since like the early days of DNC's channel, I've known that he is the kind of person where he said this about himself: you either love him or you hate him. And I've gotten that vibe, and I love him in part because he helped me get back into comics. So that's at least one good thing. He's always done it. Tomorrow, if he sells me a stinker book, and I'm grumpy that he sold me a stinker book, he will at least have gotten me back into superhero comics. And I definitely agree that we don't all need to follow DNC. We don't all need to like his content. We've talked a lot about just what makes a quality comic. So when Larry makes the Jawbreakers a bit, I click with that because you don't want to buy a bad book, you want to buy a good book. Now I think we just differ on what are we willing to spend our money on, and I was more willing to spend my money to give Jawbreakers a chance. And you called Jawbreakers a movement book. And like the difficulty for me is I kind of have to grant that there is a movement aspect to Jawbreakers that wasn't true of Patriotica. Now, I kind of missed the boat of Patriotica because that was coming out just as I was starting to get back and, timidly buy my first few comics. So maybe the thing I challenge Larry to think about is, can DNC have a good effect for others? Is he going to be the only one who benefits, or is the success of Jawbreakers maybe an indication that there's a market there for a certain type of story? So when you look at Jawbreakers, what type of story is he signaling that he wants to tell? He wants to tell a story with masculine men going on an adventure and fighting King Kong with a beautiful girl, right? It's this romantic idea. So the movement aspect of the book is, I want to say to Marvel and DC, I like good heroic fantasy books, and I try to send that message to them too by buying good heroic fantasy books that Marvel and DC actually have put out. I haven't boycotted them just because I'm grumpy at some of their prose. So what I would like to see is, I would like to see more people have success like Richard has had. So if you look at Richard and say, well, he's not as talented as an artist as so-and-so, why does he have more success than so-and-so? Rather than saying I would be grumpy at DNC for that, I would rather say, well, then let's all go support this other so-and-so who's doing better art. Let's move the needle for them. Let's make them richer. Let's make them richer than I was getting my words mangled up. Let's make them richer than DNC. And so I kind of see that's what YouTube's role is. And there are going to be DC channels, there are going to be Marvel channels, there are going to be indie book channels. But I see the value of looking at a comic and saying, here's what's good about the comic, here's what's bad about the comic. Is, for me, I like to see things about the comic and have a feel for what I'm getting into, and maybe have someone warn me away from the bad book. I like the store owner at my comic book shop, because if he sees I'm about to buy something he knows is bad, he will actually take it out of my pile and say, you do not want this book, it's garbage. And that gives me a lot of trust in him when he'll say, this is a good book, you should add this to your pull list. So I want comics YouTubers and comics Twitter people to kind of do the thing that my local comic book shop owner did for me. He found out that I had no interest in Valiant. He gave me his personal copies of good Valiant books as a way of trying to get me hooked on a new series of books. So we've talked about DNC a lot. Is Jawbreakers good? Is Jawbreakers bad? Is he a good artist? Is he a lame artist? Is he overrated? How much of this is due to Twitter drama? But when we talk about Jawbreakers as a movement book, I think we can't miss if it's a movement book, what's the movement? So the movement behind alt hero is, we are alt-right and we like to trigger some people, and this looks triggering. There may be a dimension of, let's trigger some SJWs to the support of Jawbreakers, but I think there's also an element of, we would like heroic, problematic stories as something we want to see in the industry at large, and we want to see independent creators be able to tell these problematic stories without getting crushed by the Mary Sues and the everyday feminisms of the world. So I guess really you could say the difference between me and Larry is, I'm a bit more of an optimist, and you even said this, Larry. You look at supernovas and all the pain and death in the world. So there's almost kind of an optimism pessimism distinction, and I go back and forth between being an optimist and a pessimist. But I'm optimistic that if Jawbreakers succeeds, then that's not the end of potential success. Then so-and-so, who we've never even heard about yet, that could be the next success.
I also think it's kind of an extreme studio situation. That closest person that Richard's like is Rob Liefeld, except Rob Liefeld is actually a better storyteller, an artist, and everything. But with that being the case, where Rob Liefeld started up studios, he started up Stream, the Maximum Press, then so on and so forth. The guy just he couldn't help, because one studio would implode. But said, "Oh my God, Gato Comics is going to be the best thing ever." All right, good for you. Oh, you get tapped. Yeah, Rob was throwing money at people, but they weren't getting any better. You look at the artists that he had on the books. they were trash. I mean, as much as people say, "Oh my God, Stephen Platt, he was an amazing artist," he was being paid like what, 150 grand just to do a comic. It was like slow profit, and it was slow, and the art was not that good. He improved. I mean, and over the years he improved, but it's one of these things it's well, you know, that's my opinion. Of course, that's a 25-year-old comic and nobody really knows about. But to see any beneficial thing, there will be people that benefit, and they happen to be named Richard Meyer, and that's first and foremost. That's it. I'm not going to claim to be some altruistic, you know, do-gooder saint looking out for people, you know, left and right. I take care of my own. I take care of myself first and foremost. The people that treat me decent, that do decent work, solid people. And when I think of solid people, you know, like, hey, they can shit post, they can troll a little bit, they can throw a little heat here or there, bust somebody's balls. But calling people out just to make YouTube bucks. Oh my God, this video got demonetized. Oh, boo hoo hoo for you, Richard. Oh my God. Wait, we need to do something. Sharpen your pitchforks, folks. You know, douse your torches with lighter fluid. We got to get out there. You know, Daddy needs help.
All right. So we're really getting at just the attitudinal difference, right?
Oh yeah,
I agree with you in the spirit that I don't want to go out and roast someone just because DNC would tell me to do so. But I guess, so we're kind of in agreement that it's not a good idea to just go follow anyone blindly. But yeah. we clearly have like very different perspectives on diversity in comics, where my whole channel is literally named after a diversity in comics in joke, and I still, you know, listen to him and I respond to things he thinks about, because it kind of helps me think through issues of comics. I mean, just throughout this whole conversation, you've thrown out the name of multiple books I've never even touched, right?
See,
I'm a fake geek guy, you know, in a lot of ways on certain comics. Yeah, I've read comics as a kid, but you know, I'm kind of coming back into it as an adult, almost with fresh eyes, and discovering some of this stuff for the first time. And so maybe the difference for me is I'm coming into this community out of an SJW art school, where my SJW art professors are kind of fresh on my mind, and so that gives me a different perspective where I can say, you know, you could be right. You could be right that, you know, it's not fair that I wouldn't begrudge DNC his success, because I'm enough of a capitalist that I figure, you know, if you succeed, well, good. That's capitalism. But I lost the train of thought there. But
I know what you're getting at, though. But it's like, I see him, you know, even though there's like people say they're against gatekeepers, but he's a gatekeeper for more. You know, a lot of people go to, you know, unintentional, possibly. Intentionally, perhaps, you know, it's everybody's call, but you know, you have the like, oh my God, I got to see here what he thinks of this book. Oh, he's taking the hit reading this horrible comic, paying money for a bad comic. Well, I'm doing it so you don't have to. That Link Horror crap ain't going to cut it. That, you know, I
don't know. I mean, people can definitely dissent. People definitely dissent. Like Action Comics 1000, you know, Diversity in Comics didn't like that, and pretty much every other channel did. Yellow Flash liked it, you know, everybody, and even in Yellow Flash's review of it, he was like, I watched Zach's video and he didn't like it, but I did, and here's why. You know, he's not the king or anything.
That's right.
I think you're right that there's definitely a huge segment that like hangs on his every word, and they're gonna buy only things he recommends or whatever. But quite a few people too are willing to just make up their own opinions.
I think it's going to be, we're going to have to look back at this. You know, 10 years are going to pass. We're going to look back at this, and we're going to have to ask, did Diversity in Comics, did he end up making good comics, or did he end up making bad comics? And the heat of the Twitter drama will have cooled by then. And it'll be easier to look at and say, well, this was a good book. And, you know, maybe it'll be a mix. Maybe he'll have some good books come out, and maybe he'll have some bad books come out. But there's a dimension to this where, you know, time has to pass, and then we have to kind of look back on it with, you know, less heat or less emotional investment, and just see what was good, what was bad. So, yeah. So we've talked about DNC a lot, and it's almost kind of like DNC's hijacked the discussion, because I think
true.
the reason he came up is, you know, there's the drama over Antarctic Press, there's the drama over Jawbreakers, Lost Souls. He's significant enough that you kind of have to talk about him. You know, love him or hate him, you kind of have to talk about him because it's what's happening. But what I think that what I think is sort of the agreed upon point, despite every direction we've gone, is we'd like to read good comics. We'd like to read comics with as good art as possible, as good stories as possible. Maybe we can be a little forgiving. I mean, Larry, you kind of roasted John Malin a little bit, but you recognize that he's not the worst, you know, compared to...
Far from it. Far from it. But my is, I don't know if it was the speed of it, but there's certain stuff. When you look at a character, you see certain things like that. The main guy, I was like, is that a Fu Manchu mustache? Because the art's so flat, and it's like I guess it's supposed to be a Fu Manchu mustache, but like usually when you do stuff like that, you know, you're supposed to do like the hash, like very tight hash, to show like hair fibers and everything, and then do like a dark blue to show like, you know, that's hair. If it's like a person that has black hair or very dark hair, to show that. And I was like, you know, I'm trying to tell a guy that got paid money, like, Larry, who are you know, whatever. But it's, hey, everybody's got an opinion, you know. But the guy has black eyes, like a doll's eyes, you know. And, you know, there's like a lot of just like, if you look at it, but nobody's, you know, like either out of devotion, just elation, like, oh my God, the comics happening, oh great, or whatever. I was like, you know, I'm looking at my comics right now. I love good comics. I have the hardcovers for, and have you ever heard of the artist Barry Windsor Smith?
Yes, I think I thought. Is he on Twitter? I know I've heard that.
I don't think so. He's the guy who basically, even though Conan was the Robert E. Howard creation, him and Roy Thomas, they basically made Conan, as well as John Buscema back in the 70s. He did a series of comics called, it was these oversized black and white stories, Young Gods and Friends and the Freebooters, as well as Paradox Man. He also did a book called Disaster in Africa, which is really Life Death #3, which was the Storm Forge stories that him and Claremont were doing. He basically plotted this out. Marvel said no, so he did it as his own character and put it out. It's a beautiful story about, you know, life and loss and dealing with, you know, things out of your control. Beautiful stuff. Nobody knows about this stuff. Also, it's kind of hard to find because it's out of print, other stuff like that. Looks like Strangers in Paradise, about criminals and lesbians and artists. You know, what people would call the typical SJW book, but it's beautiful. It's beautifully done. And it's a series of what they call pocket books. They're about manga size, and it's the entire series in 7 volumes. And there's so many good books out there. But it's like, I want good books. They exist already. There are so many comics. These new people coming into comics, for good or bad. Richard has brought people into comics, which is good. That will be his legacy, bringing people in. If they wake up and realize that just starting Twitter drama to get views, like, yeah, this is uncool. Calling a person a liar, like, oh my God, white guys from Wisconsin, they didn't read no, you know, Milestone books. Oh, excuse me, Static Shock. Hello. I mean, Static Shock even back in the day was a good comic. It was about marketing and shelf space. You know, Milestone came out at the wrong time. That was about the time the comic industry as a whole started imploding because of the speculator market. So it was a bad time. It was a bad time to be trying something new. But all these good comics exist, even over the whole Mark Waid situation. I have not had a chance to read this one, but I read the Cyberforce Hunter Killer trade paperback that Top Cow put out with the Kenneth Rocafort art. Everybody's like, oh, I want sexy women, I want buff men, I want good action. Pick this book up. Everybody's like, oh, Mark Waid, I'll never read anything, but I'll burn his books. This comic they basically fight a Cthulhu creature in it. There are these beautiful women, as Kenneth Rocafort, he did the Red Hood and the Outlaws books at DC. It is incredible. It exists. Nobody picking it up. Nobody talks about it because, you know, they want to pick up something new. They want new. Like new could be something you've never read or even heard about. I mean, there's still comics I'm coming across I'd never heard of. You know, Nathan Never, a bunch of these French albums. There was like really weird stuff that Mega Gears X had turned me on to. I was like, oh my God, I need this. Damn you, my friend. Damn you, because I want this bad. These books exist. There's new books. It might be 20, 30 years old. They're new. So there's no, I mean, good books are out there. They might have passed you by, but there's no excuse to, like, okay, I'm looking towards the future while there's a ton of beautiful things behind you. Oh, you can never look back. It ain't life. It ain't mistakes.
And
so
when you talk about it, that enthusiasm is infectious. So I'm kind of coming. I sort of represent the person who was a comics reader and then came back into it. And so when I hear enthusiasm like that, and I say, oh, good grief, I gotta go get that yesterday. And so you've granted, what love or hate DNC, he has brought new people into this, but you're also seeing this dimension of let's all hate Mark Waid. That means nothing. That does no good to the comic book shop owner. All right, so Larry King, let me pitch an idea at you, and you tell me what you think. Okay, so I've said this over and over again on my channel, and if I could distill every video I've ever done into one thing, it would be this. So my SJW teachers, the question is, are they just a few goofballs, or are they significant? And my thought is, every year they get a class of about 20 students, and these 20 students go into the art class, and in theory they're supposed to learn how to make art. Let's learn how to draw. Let's learn how to paint. But that's not what they learn. They learn how to be political activists, and they learn how to yell at old artists. They want to destroy. Not literally destroy, but metaphorically, they want to destroy what Western art is. So Michelangelo is bad. Leonardo da Vinci is bad. And so then, of course, when they look at comics, what do they see? They see badness. And so every year, a new crop of 20 students go into these classes. They're taught theoretically in an art class where you're supposed to learn art. They're taught, let's deconstruct everything old and let's replace it with this new vision. And even if they don't make art like this, they're taught, art like Carolee Schneemann pulling a scroll out of her unmentionables because it's supposed to be an anti-male gaze message. So even if they don't do that kind of art, they're taught that is what good art is because it has the right political message about the male gaze. So what I'm worried about is every year, the artists who the main companies are going to be hiring, they're going to be hiring art students from this pool of people. Now, talented people who just really want to succeed, they really want to make successful art, they don't give two hoots about this sort of weird, chic, postmodern art culture. They're going to succeed no matter what because they're dedicated, they're committed. And maybe it's sad that they don't get the attention they deserve. But what I'm worried about is it's going to be harder and harder and harder to find the stories that you like, the art that you like, as long as we have this problem of the teachers thinking that art is politics and that's all it can be, that beauty actually is a bad thing. So when we talk about DNC, and we've had this very sharp disagreement on whether we like him and whether we want to support Jawbreakers, but we've kind of had this connection that we don't want DNC to define everything there is to talk about comics. We want to talk about good comics. So what my pitch to you is that in my thinking, DNC represents not just a middle finger to trigger SJWs, but he represents someone saying no just because you think that women with large breasts is problematic and that it infects the mind of the young children. Even if not everything about the art is good, if he's willing to say no to that, then what I think that represents is the possibility that other people can say no to that as well. So you may not be the biggest, you may disagree with DNC on a lot of things, but if you want to tell beautiful stories about heroes and beautiful female characters, you have to be able to say no to this little clique of postmodern artists who think it's hanging breasts on the wall and screaming, and so you kind of nailed me, right? I do support DNC in part because I think it's important. It's important to, what am I trying to say? It's not that I just want to trigger these people, but I want to say no to them because then that makes it easier for the next person to say, no, I don't have to draw Squirrel Girl the way you tell me to draw Squirrel Girl so that you won't call me a sexist. I will draw Squirrel Girl the way that I think beautiful art should be drawn. So that's kind of my pitch, because you dig comics. You have lots of comics you want to talk about. You have lots of comics that you want to introduce people like me to. And we've agreed that DNC brings new people into this. But beyond just triggering SJWs, I think that what Jawbreakers represent is a moment for us to say, no, that the nasty little art professor who's got, I don't know, like period blood art, that person does not get to tell us what our comic book should be. So that's my pitch. So what do you think, Larry? Roast me.
Okay, here's the thing. What you're talking about is pushback, but you're also talking about hurting them, not destroying them, but hurting them, because hurting is much more effective. It stings longer, and that could be the richer thing, but also the Jawbreakers and everything like that, but also the pushback. But a lot of it comes down to your willpower. If you have to be told, or somebody, I'll go pick a book I've never heard of or seen, like that cover looks good. That's weird, and that's a weird sounding name. Or going through the back issues. All right, I'm picking that up. That's an odd looking cover. All right, what the hell is that supposed to be? All right, I'm getting that. Stuff like that. More interesting, but also I'll pick up stuff on volition. Sometimes it'll be great. Sometimes it'll be a stinker. Whatever. I'm gonna take the chance. I don't need to be told, hey, check this out. But a lot of people, they kind of read the TV guide, as it were. As the old time man saying, you go through the TV guide and you don't have to, read the TV guide, you don't have to watch TV. And that being the case, where you have these professors, you have these teachers from any grade school all the way up to colleges and universities, the pushback on them can only go so far. Like 90% of them are of the same mind. When they're not, they ostracize that, like the outsider. It's the body snatchers, the 70s body snatchers. They point and screech. And that's exactly what they do. So, people, and it's the problem with that is there's only so much people can do. You want big-titted women, you want dudes that look like they bench press a car without superpowers. Oh, you have a tiny waist. That's another thing. The whole Rob Liefeld, this and that, but it's cartoony. People mocked Kirby too.
Yeah.
People still do, like, that ugly blocky art. You know what? People gonna have their opinion. And that's another thing. Changing people's minds is very hard. You can get a lot of people like-minded. Like, I mean, if Richard wanted to, he probably could start some kind of Jim Jones-like cult. There's a lot of people
No doubt. I don't know about Jim Jones, but he has so much influence. It's insane. It's weird because I see this stuff on Twitter all day. I kind of get used to it, but then I'll go on Facebook, and it'll be in all the comic book face group books too. And now I'm seeing today, there's news stories about it. There's a CBR article about it. This Canadian news channel's got a story about it. It's like, how big is this Richard business gonna get? He really does have an influence in the comic book industry.
And that right there, you're the influence, and that's another thing I wanted to mention earlier. You actually reminded me of that. There's a lot of people who say, like, how did this bad writer, how did this bad artist keep getting work? You know why? Because you people and Richard, you talk about them, you tweet at them, you mention them, you make videos on them. Oh my God, this horrible SJW did this. Oh my God. And so when that person searches them on Google, that video comes up. You keep them in the zeitgeist. You may be like, a lot of people are like, they don't consider themselves the villain in the story. I'm doing right by the world. I'm putting their name out there so I can warn people.
Yeah, most people don't consider themselves to be the bad guy no matter what.
Well, I do. I'm pretty villainous. I'm the kind of person, like the other saying, I wouldn't piss on you to put you out if you're on fire. I'm the kind of person I just laugh and point.
You'll bully walruses and other sea animals.
Hey, that walrus deserved it, and that's Wilford Brimley, not me.
Okay. I always just assumed it was you.
No, it was a series of 3 images, like people fighting the people they look like. It was Chaka versus Chewbacca. Chaka from Land of the Lost.
Really?
Chaka versus Chewbacca. A Sleestack versus the Gorn. And then, Wilford Brimley versus a walrus. And it's like, of course the Wilford Brimley would have to win diabetes. But
with that muscle he's got. Oh, that's the other thing too. You're talking about body image in comics.
Yeah.
You know, they're superheroes. They're gonna be ideal looking, you know, male and female both. Like, they always talk about Miss Marvel, you know, she was too voluptuous or whatever. But Superman too, you look at him, like his shoulders are very broad. Like they're, you know, when most artists draw Superman, they give him an unrealistic upper body. I don't hear them complain about that, you know, and they shouldn't. But my point is, the people in comic books characters are very idealized. Even people that are regular humans like Batman, they train like 15 hours a day or something. They're gonna be really, you know, in good shape. You know, how are you gonna run around and fight crime if you're out of shape? That's one criticism I don't get. And another thing too is it's a visual medium. If you're making something that you want to sell, you know, people want to have to look at it. You know, people don't want to look at things that are unappealing, and it's just very simple, basic human nature for both sexes what they find attractive. You know, there's variance on that, but for most people, it's pretty simple.
See, that's what I totally get. And there's a lot of people, you know, on the right side. You know, it's hate pulling it down, but you know, just in general terms, and also just for brevity's sake. But a book like Faith could be a really good book. Oh, it's a fat girl as a hero. What is her power? Basically, a very passive power. You know, she flies, so of course she wouldn't have to work out. She wouldn't have to do this. Some people, they have bad genes. You know, their metabolism sucks. They can't sweat like normal people. They, you know, maybe bad knees or something, just genetically, like they're whatever. I don't know, or a bad heart. I don't know. You can make you can excuse. Well, see that right there? That's them getting their foothold. If every single comic book woman had big ass, big tits, thin waist, you know, pretty face, all of them, every single one, it'd be boring. You know, I like the. Do you two remember the old school Callisto from the X-Men comics? You know, the Morlock leader.
Sounds familiar.
She's the one with the eye patch. She had spiky hair. It's basically a punk look. She lived in the garbage underneath in the Morlock tunnels, which were like ran underneath New York City all the way to like the X Mansion.
I remember her from the cartoon because I'm a fake geek guy.
Oh my God, we need to. You need to take off those glasses, those fake glasses without no lenses. You need to take the Hot Topic shirt and burn it, and turn yourself into the law because you're a criminal. No, but it's back in the day, Callisto, when she first appeared, she was an ugly chick. All right, she was dirty, messed up face. She was ugly. There's no way around it. She was like, you know, she would be what they call a handsome woman. Well, the cartoon and the other comics, they made her pretty. Marrow, when she first appeared, half of her hair was like falling out. She had bones sticking out of her head. She got like white eyes, you know, snarling all the time. She's basically, you know, kind of a Wolverine replacement. And I love the idea of this scrappy girl who, like, she's like about, you know, about 17, 18 or so, maybe like 18, 20. And she would pull weapons out of her. She'd throw these daggers and like climb walls, like with the daggers, like, you know, like kind of that kind of deal. And then they kind of toned it down a little bit. I guess she appeared in the Marvel vs. Capcom game, or X-Men vs. Street Fighter, actually. Sorry, where they give her like this kind of spiky, short haircut. It's like, so she isn't balding no more, and she was Joe Mad design, Joe Mad wear. A lot of people don't even know who Joe Mad is anymore. That's a damn shame. He doesn't really do. He hasn't done comics since that really that I think it was like Spider Island or something like that. I know he did Avengers 3, unfortunately, but they went and said, okay, that's still a little too extreme. So they softened her up, made the bones kind of angelic like and soft and twirly and all this and that, and they broke the character. When you have ugly and pretty and bland and like all over it make a much more rich tapestry. You know, I don't like to call it, you know, it ain't really diversity, it's rich, making an environment rich and not just the same flavor. Oh, it's a woman, but it's, you know, she's white or Asian or black or Native American or, you know, Middle Eastern or whatever. They all look the same. You know? That's not
because
cool.
it reflects real life. Because it reflects real life. You look out in the real world and you see all kinds of varieties of people. Every shape of nose, every body shape, every head shape you can think of, and it helps absorb you into the world. if they are not, if every single woman is a blonde bombshell, you're not absorbing into the world. So what I'm clicking with is, I openly identify as a political conservative on my channel, and I have since the very early days. But so it's important for me as a conservative to remember that people to my left, it's not like they're always wrong all the time. They can observe correct things. So when people say there should be variety in how women are drawn in comics and how everybody is drawn in comics, you can click with that and say, yeah, I don't want to look at the exact same drawing of a woman with the exact same face all day, every day, in every single comic. I want to see variety. But I talk about SJWs a lot. Maybe it's just because of my educational background, and because that makes them seem bigger in my mind because they were all my teachers. But I see them as taking an argument like that and then pushing it too far. So can we have fat superhero characters? Yeah, I'm down for it. Let's see it. But then they go beyond that to say idealized superhero characters are bad. Idealized superhero characters will actually make you sexist. And
that's when I started to have a problem with it. Exactly. A good comic, especially if they're on the street or whatever, should have all kinds of people. They should all be different races and sizes and everything, just like in real life. But what they're saying is you can't have idealized people, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
and
that is.
I agree with that, what you're saying. That's so ridiculous. And on top of it, they always want to support free speech, supposedly, and choice, and you should be able to do and draw whatever you want. If you want to draw, a weird animal like the pervert, like that Michelle Perez book, if you want to draw that, that's fine. But if you want to draw Superman and Lois Lane like in a normal relationship, that's a problem. It's everything's turned upside down, and I'm not even that old. Like, when did this happen?
Have you guys read not Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, but Scott McCloud's Reinventing Comics?
No, but it sounds like I should.
Read it. I read it and I didn't care for it. I don't really like Scott McCloud because I read his comics. You read his comic Zot?
I did read Zot. Yes, I read Understanding Comics, and at first I loved it, and then I read Zot, and I read Reinventing Comics, and I got a bad taste in my mouth. So tell me what you think of what you thought of Zot, and I'll see if
my thing of Zot is it's like a guy that had a semi-decent idea but no real way to execute it, and after like trying and in a way failing. So the comic in a way is a failure. It's a good idea stretched out way too long. Talk about decompressed. There's a lot of kind of false starts in the book. It's not a well-drawn book, not a well-written book. The concepts, Epic, the imprint from Marvel, were doing better concepts, like with the multiversal kind of deal. Not straight up multiversal, but like Michael Moorcock's Elric stories that were coming out during the 80s. Far better offering. If you want to read stuff, we go from Marvel Epic. But if we were in the 80s, so we're talking past. So you plan on doing a time travel trip, there you go, folks. But
back issues, right?
back issues as well. I don't know about I think there are some collections out there, maybe on Amazon. I don't know. But and then go from Zot to reading Understanding Comics, it was just understanding and then reinventing. It was like a guy who changed the battery on a car one time, is trying to tell you how to make a car.
Right. He had one series, and then he went. The strength of Understanding Comics, I think, what appealed to me about it when I first read it was I originally was in a non-SJW school where everyone was very, very traditionally minded. So to them, comics were kind of like this stupid thing for little kids, and you should all draw like Michelangelo. So when I first read Understanding Comics, I liked it because I said, here's someone who's saying something about comics that I've always felt, that they have this great potential for telling stories, and you don't have to draw like Michelangelo to make a good comic. They're a different kind of thing. And so then I went back and read Zot because of my positive reaction to Understanding Comics. And I kind of had a similar reaction to you. I thought, well, there's a good idea here. It's a little stretched out, maybe because of his manga influence. And then I finally went to Reinventing Comics. And that's where I started to get the sense that for someone like Scott McCloud, they see comics as a vehicle for more than just the male power fantasy. They see comics as a vehicle for creating a new kind of society. It was almost weirdly religious, how he was trying to describe the potential of comics in reinventing comics. He wasn't talking about them as vehicles for stories at all. He was talking about them as some sort of method for instruction that would permeate all of culture. And so then again, SJW Art School, I see the eggheads. When they talk about comics, Scott McCloud is very prominent in their thinking. So they might be, writing essays critiquing Scott McCloud, but for someone who read Spider-Man growing up, Spider-Man's their introduction to the world of comics. For an egghead who looks at comics as, oh, this is a vehicle of creating a culture and of perpetuating our politics, then Scott McCloud and the intelligentsia are their introduction to comics. So I've kind of in the back of my head had an idea for a while where I want to talk about reinventing comics, and I don't want to call it like ground zero of SJW Marvel or anything clickbaity like that. But part of what I think all of this fighting is there are people who have a very different idea for what the heck comics should be. And if you just like fun stories and you just like fun art, you are already at odds with people who think that comics are going to be their vehicle for inculcating their ideas about, I don't know, economics or 52 genders or whatever.
They have kind of a small view too, like comics can only be one thing. It's like saying novels, all novels can only be adventure. It's like, okay, it's just a medium. It's like saying music. There's only one type of music. You can only have the one kind. It's like there should be all kinds. Okay. I did want to come back to this too. The talking about Antarctic press and jawbreakers and stuff. Like, it shouldn't be controversial from either side. Like, I don't think it was right for people to pressure Antarctic press into not publishing something, but I don't know. It doesn't make sense, like, why wouldn't something so mundane be allowed? On its surface, there's really nothing about jawbreakers that would be controversial. Oh, but then from the other side, I don't think it was right for people to pressure shops to have to carry it, or if they decide not to carry it, that they should be stigmatized for that. But it's like both sides went to the extreme to the point that I couldn't agree with it, like, I think shops should be able to have it, and I think Antarctic press should have been able to print it. But for everyone to just be like, no, you can't do that, especially when it's a medium like comics. And there's all kinds of crazy, like, horrible, terrible comics out there too, like Crossed. Do not look up Crossed. Like, that is an abominable thing. And this is just such a mundane book, it's like, what's the deal? Why is this such a big issue for both sides? And both sides in some ways took a stance that was very kind of fascist. Like, it didn't agree with free speech, in my opinion.
Well,
so what do you guys? I don't know what you guys think about that.
Well, as far as Cross goes, Cross is child's play. I've read a book. It's called EO, letter O, written by Franz Henkel and illustrated by Tim Vigil. And to describe it would probably turn your stomach, but I admire it for its. I'll just say this much. Guy gives it to his wife so hard her insides come out. So yeah, there you go. And that's mild. The open up the book, the inside front cover kind of folds out. And
I don't want to get the video pulled for graphic whatever.
Oh, I'm just saying that's all I'm going to go. But there's a lot of.
Oh, okay.
It was one of these things. It's like, you know what? If it was any lesser artist, I'd be disgusted because of the talent it takes to be this disgusting. I approve. Tim Vigil's a nice guy. I've met him at a convention a couple times. So
that's the weird thing about Crossed. I mean, isn't it like Gareth Ennis or someone really famous?
Gareth Ennis, yeah. It's like Preacher. But hey, in Love of God and Preacher, there's a redneck that has intercourse with a fish. Or, sorry, chicken. Sorry, a chicken.
Yeah, there's a guy who has a butt face, right?
Arse face, where he tried to commit suicide and and messed up his head.
And it looks like that, yeah. So
yeah, they toned it down for the TV show.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah! Oh my God! The comics version is kind of disgusting because it's that painted cover by Glenn Fabry. The insides were Steve Dillon, the late Steve Dillon. So, but as far as you were mentioning, the Antarctic Press thing, there's people, I'll never give Antarctic Press a dime. I'm like, I guarantee you, before 2 days ago, you'd never even heard of them. And that's the thing. Nobody like that Nun comic and a couple of the funny animal comics, and when they put out those occasional, like, we're trying to be relevant and political, like they did like a Obama Barbarian comic, or it's like a kind of homage to Conan and all that stuff. Nobody really. I've said before, I've never seen a new Antarctica Press comic on the shelves of any store. Granted, I've never been to every store, but they are like there's a tier, and like you say, like Marvel, Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, so on and so forth. IDW, Dynamite, are up there at the top, and Alternative Press is like right there, not too far from them, because they're doing their own thing. I mean, alternative, and then Antarctica is like middle of nowhere, nobody knows. They're out in Texas somewhere, but it's not the book itself, it's the everybody around it. It's like you got where you wanted to go, it's kind of thing, but it's like the things come up, but whatever. Out of control. I like to see how this stuff's going to shake loose, because I think there's going to be more stuff coming out, but as far as the whole Scott McCloud thing, I wanted to mention this. The Scott McCloud, Alison Bechdel, that stupid Bechdel test, which everybody's like, oh my God, two women characters talking about something, talking together that isn't dealing with men, that kind of stuff. That Bechdel test.
Yep.
I'm not saying she's a bad artist. My opinion is I don't care for her work. But McCloud, her, and these people that are kind of these revolutionary or whatever, quote unquote, or like very influential, are that for the wrong reasons, I feel. That's why when it comes to schooling and teaching, where I'm like, Marmaduke, we're on the doll, did the SJWs touch you?
Right. And I deserve that, because I talk about it a lot. I think about it. I think about it a lot. It was a chunk of my life, and I will sometimes just pause and think and say, okay, what did I learn about? Why was I taught that? Because I like to think about what's the future going to be. What kind of world are they going to create? A while ago, you said this, and we didn't get a chance to touch on it. You kind of said, well, if your art teachers are that way, what are you going to do? Sure, you can push back, but that's not going to change their minds. That's not going to change the art school. And the thing I get, you could say, you could roast me and say I worry about this too much, and maybe I do. But what I worry about is in our lifetime, it's going to get harder and harder to enjoy our hobby. And all right, this connects to what DC Fans United said. Why did we have a big fat standoff? You called it fascist. I kind of like the word totalitarian for it, where one group of people said, Antarctic may not carry this book, and another, or I'm going to boycott Antarctic even for thinking of publishing a DNC book. Another group said, I'm going to boycott Antarctic. If you were not already buying tons of Antarctic books, that threat to boycott means nothing. It means nothing to threaten to boycott if you weren't already buying tons of their work. And so what I think has happened is we have a hobby we love, and something in politics has come charging into it to our chagrin. And it's happened in football. It's happened in Magic the Gathering. It happened in video games. I think it's going to happen everywhere. So if Larry, that was a good roast. We're in the dog doll. Did my SJW art teachers touch me? And
that was really clever and off the cuff.
Solid roast. All right, but the reason I talk about them so much is I think they are a very persistent, very dedicated, and intelligent group of people. They are. So a lot of them are probably more intelligent than me, but they're intelligent people who are pushing for a ridiculous politics that makes them take their politics everywhere, including comics. So when we have a firestorm on Twitter, I see that as I see the right as reactionary and the left as radical. The left makes changes. They try to actively change the world to bring about the world they want to bring. And the right says, oh no, it was better in the good old days. You know, these hippies, these millennials, and then we may argue with them a little bit. But the right is not as good as going out and making a ton of comic books or a ton of movies as the left is. The left creates these sort of passionate, artistic people. So even when they create sort of poisonous political ideas, they're still passionate and creative people. And I can still even appreciate the beauty or the brilliance of their work in spite of my disagreements with their politics. So anyone who sees my channel can tell that I talk about social justice warriors a lot, maybe to the point where I talk about them too much. But the reason I talk about them is I think they have the administrative positions. They have the positions of power. They talk about power incessantly. It's like it's the only thing that motivates them is they care about power. And for them, comics books is a place where they can go get some more power over people's lives. And so if Larry King kind of asked me, well, what can you do? You know, you can push back against them a little bit, but that's not going to change that. What will that change in the long run? And it's realistic. You know, I'm probably not going to make a huge dent in the long run. I'm not going to single-handedly overthrow social justice warriorism. But when I hear them talk about the kind of world that they want to make, and when I hear them talk about the kind of stories they want to tell, I'm worried about it enough, and I love comic books enough that I feel like I should talk about it. If nothing else, than to let people who weren't in the, you know, I at the very least, I hope none of you guys ever pay, you know, tons of money to send your kids to an SJW art school. Don't do it. They're going to come home dripping period blood off the walls to make a picture of Donald Trump, and it'll only have cost you tens of thousands of dollars. And and the thing is, you don't even have to imagine it. These people will tell you what they want to do, and what they want to do is kind of freaky. And so I guess that's the short answer is I talk about SJW so much because I worry that they won't leave us alone. So I mentioned before I came from this deep red state background, right? And there would be Christians who would say, oh, well, you know, South Park is bad. We must stop people from watching South Park. And as I've grown, I'm still a Christian. I'm still on the right, but I don't like this attitude of saying you must be stopped from enjoying it if I find it distasteful. But yeah, the religious right doesn't have that kind of power over culture anymore. The SJWs have that power over culture. So even if it's possible for the religious right to be as prudish and censorious as the left are the ones who are teaching all the artists who are going into the comic book industry and all the writers going into the comic book industry.
And
that's the imbalance. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you. And really, you know, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. They're really influencing all sorts of media, and it is strange too, because just in my lifetime, I've seen it flip from the religious right probably having a little too much power, and you know, kind of being a little oppressive, to it being flipped the other way, to being like, okay, we do need some semblance of morality still, like, and that's why I'm drawn to characters like Superman, and you know, stories, you know, like classic stories where they were just about doing good things and standing up for the little guy and stuff. And it seemed like that used to be what our culture was really about not too long ago, and it's just gotten so divisive and just, you know, immoral and like corrupt. I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting older, but that's kind of how it seems to me.
No, that's how I see it as well, because a lot of people are corrupt, and you got to think a lot of these people, you look at shows like, and it's kind of going back a little bit, Lost, the TV show Lost, and there's a lot of other things where, you know, you say the Spielberg stuff like with E.T. and other things, like where the family dynamic has just been destroyed. You don't have a mother and father anymore. You have like a single mother, or rotating, you know, step-husband, you know, got stepfathers, stepmothers, that kind of thing, or rotating uncles, and the family structure has been destroyed. So there's a lot of people very cynical, so they don't have a, you know, there's that, you look at the newest Star Trek, you know, because in the common, in the common, you know, the main universe, whatever, the Prime timeline, Kirk had a mother, had a father, had a straight up backstory and everything. It was this colony, and then there was a food problem, all this and that. And the new one, they had to give him daddy issues. It's mostly daddy issues with these new things, and there's a lot of people, whether it's these, a lot of people that they didn't have strong father figures, they didn't have fathers in their lives at all, or they, their fathers are just trying to tell them, hey, give them some common sense, and like, oh no, I won't have it because I went to art school or went to whatever school and was told otherwise, and that person knows what they're talking about because like able to get inside their head. It's like boot camp, except for it's a lot longer and costs a hell of a lot more, and you can go into debt, and sometimes you do come out with your head shaved like a cult. So yeah, it is funny to see this stuff happen. A lot of it is where those who can't do teach, and I wouldn't. There are very few people I would actually listen to as far as artists goes. Like, oh, I know how to help you out. The critiques and everything, and like it had to be somebody I respected, or somebody that actually like I wouldn't take a critique from a fellow artist. Maybe it's like, hey, like you forgot to put that symbol on that person's hand, or that like you're missing, and there's something in like background. Like, oh, there's, you had 3 buttons, this one panel, now there's 4. Oh crap, that kind of thing. I'll take that. That helps me. Oh, this sucks. That doesn't help me. Shut up. Go away. I'll mute you. I don't tell them I'll mute them. I'll just mute them and not tell them. It's stuff like that. That doesn't help me. Like, be specific at very least. If you're gonna bust my balls, bust them with truth. It's like, hey Larry, that guy's great and all, but why does his eye look like he's looking off to the north and the other one's looking like the south? Like, what's going on here? Come on, or east or west or whatever, that kind of thing. It's like, dude, there's something off about that. Okay, bust my balls, but help me out a little.
Right. It's like that with making YouTube videos too. Constructive criticism is always helpful and appreciated, but when people are just like, yeah, your video is terrible, you should delete your channel, stuff like that isn't helpful. They need to be specific.
I was thinking a lot of it, we need better comics thing. Like, all these people, what they mean by that, I want the good old days back. They're starved for nostalgia. They want the classic Spider-Man. They want the classic X-Men back. They want the Avengers the way they remember them. They don't want good. When they say good comics, and they may say like, oh, we need new ideas. Here's a new idea. That's not the idea I want. What? I busted my ass here. It's like, no. They kind of shrug their shoulders at it. It's like, no, that, that's why I'm trying to placate to these people, especially, and it works both ways online. It's like, you can start a revolution. Image, that was a revolutionary time. The Mirage Studios, the Teenage Ninja Turtles, that first book, that was a revolutionary time. Walking Dead, that was revolutionary. These are people, and how do they, like, most of that was either going out on their own. I don't see how any of this that's breaking down now, that's this chaos that's been going on, I don't see how the hypocrisy, it's like, oh, we need less political books, we need to go pick up, me and John Matrix here, not the one from, hopefully not the one from Commando, because he has the infinite ammo code. He can shoot and never have to reload. But it's mentioning, these people like, oh, I don't want politics in my comics, but read Timothy Lim's My Hero Academia from Antarctica Press. Like, that's a little hypocrite. Yeah, that's not a little hypocrite. That's a lot hypocritical right there.
Well, then they mean I don't want politics I don't agree with.
Exactly. They want, like, there is an echo chamber for the left, there's an echo chamber for the right, and we've seen what happens when you try to breach the echo chamber. You'll get not feedback, pushback, as it were, from the people in that chamber. Like, how dare you go against the grain, or how dare you try to penetrate this bubble? And it's kind of upsetting to see that happen. It's like, oh my God, you're a grown ass adult. Why are you acting this way? And like, oh yeah, people are stupid. It doesn't matter what age. And it's kind of funny to pull that down, but we totally got derailed from the whole Gerry Conway thing. But I
had a feeling that would happen.
Oh my God, we didn't just go off road. We we were going down like I-40 going west, and then we just veered off in Arizona someplace, and now we're out where it looks like planet Mars. You know, like we're in the middle of nowhere.
On that point, is there anything else you guys wanted to say about Gerry Conway and that whole situation?
He illustrates it. He's a good illustration of other things we've talked about in this chat. We've talked about politics. We've talked about hypocrisy in Twitter back and forth. And I think Conway illustrates an aspect of that. Now, Larry, you've kind of talked about having a laugh at all of this. Yeah. It's sort of interesting. On the one hand, you kind of talk about how you hate it that Jawbreakers succeeded because the drama. I've got to be honest. The drama did help to promote the idea of Jawbreakers. It helped more people become aware of it. Yet you also enjoy watching just the bleep show of it all. There's an entertainment factor to watching people get salty and upset at each other. So there's kind of this division where it's sort of fun for us to yell at each other at Twitter, but we also kind of recognize that that's not of long-term value. You were talking about the next great creator breaking new ground or striking that out on their own and making something. Boy, I want to see people doing that. And as fun as Twitter can be sometimes, an hour spent on Twitter is an hour not spent practicing your 2 points perspective or learning how to draw more than one anime girl face. So I would like to see people, comics Twitter getting to the point where we see more creative people working their way towards the point where they can make books and not just make any old books, but make excellent books. And when you talk about nostalgia, you can't just go back to the way it was in 1990. We live in a different time. We're different people. We can go back and read great old books from the decades past if we want to read the best stuff from that time period. But the people working today, they need to have enough breathing room to make their work and find a place to publish it. And I'm kind of at the point where, one of the big aspects of the Antarctic Press thing is wondering, gee, how will this come back to bite me? If someone finds out who I am and I'm trying to publish a book, will it be enough that you just followed DNC for you to have a target on your back? Will you have had to have said something mildly upsetting yourself for them to put a target on your back? How far are people willing to take guilt by association? And I'm worried that anyone in the community who is even like, maybe Larry King, so you don't like DNC that much, you don't follow him, but if you haven't been vociferous enough in calling him a Nazi, maybe you're a secret sympathizer with him. Now, I don't know.
I'm not going to say I'm not. The thing about this, them Hugo Boss uniforms, they look pretty great. I can't lie. Don't be horrified. I'm not joking. I mean it, but I'm just saying in a joking manner. The swastika, that's a little too far. But Hugo Boss can't go wrong there. But right. Yeah, exactly. Calling them out, you get guilt by association. But we've seen, and I think, another thing about being an adult, or being just a grown person in general, is I hate the whole let's agree to disagree. No, like me and you are going to we're going to disagree, Marmaduke. But we can disagree on like a ton of stuff. But I've gone off on some tirade and stuff, and had had TC start like muting me or stuff like that. But it's because that's the thing about being an adult. You don't always have to agree with somebody. Somebody can have an opinion. You may not like it, but you can move on. It's not the end of the world.
I can get in walrus right now.
It's hard to, but there's a lot of people in Richard's camp. A lot of people that you kind of like guilt by association, but there's a lot of people that are truly guilty. It's like how can you like, well, he was just messing around. Oh, he was like, really? You're gonna go that far? It's like,
all right. Yeah. So you've talked about how you dislike the aspect of Twitter drama promoting a book, and maybe.
Like promoting himself. I meant promoting himself because it's the and then he would like oh, this video got demonetized. I'm like, I understand money. That's comics don't mean nothing. Comics that's secondary money. That's
we started
with Conway. The idea of, well, what if Conway's just being a little disagreeable and pushing back a bit? So where does sort of cheerful disagreeability? You know, where do you stop being just kind of like a guy who pushes back a little bit, and where do you start being a jerk where that goes too far, though? You know, who gets to be the moral authority to say, oh, sorry, you crossed the politeness meter there, and too bad.
Well, if intentionally, I say intentionally going after someone, like the Tim Seeley situation, that's a perfect example right there.
With DNC.
With Richard calling him out. But if Gerry Conway were to say, number one Marmaduke fan, like this kind of thing, or, like, let's say a couple days ago, I think it'll happen now, but a couple days ago or something, it's like, calls you out on something. It's like, what do you, why don't you quit YouTube? You're not good at it. You stink, or something along those lines. Whatever. Just did that out of the blue. Like, whoa, you're a professional. You're supposed to act like it. It's like, that kind of, a lot of people be like that. It's like, and then he'd be getting in with it, getting into it with them and everything. And it'd be kind of, to me, I'd find that because it's so out of place. It's like when you see, like, old people laugh. Like, old people laugh, old people cuss. Like my grandmother. Never heard her say a bad word in my entire life. No, not damn, not hell, nothing. And then said, oh, there was that woman. She was built like a brick shit house. And I'm like, whoa, what? Huh? No, I didn't hear that. Not from my grandmother. But, like, everybody thinks like, oh, they're so nice. Like it shocked me, but made me laugh. It's like, don't you tell anybody I said that. I was like, too late now, but because it's so crazy, it's so out of the blue. Maybe it's a bit crazy as far as making me laugh. It's like, oh my God, it's either laugh or cry, and I'd rather laugh than cry, But to me, I do find it humorous to see that, like, but that's not, like, people don't know Gerry Conway as that guy. Richard is that guy. There are other people that try to be Richard and being in that guy and trying to take his place, going after people. And there are people, and then I understand why these people do the mass blockchains and stuff like that. It's like, you think you might get one or two, but I mean, you're on your phone and you got 40, 50, 100 notifications. It's like, all right, this is too much trouble. This is too much trouble than it's worth. And a lot of people do use Twitter as it's like LinkedIn, but actually more functionable, for contacts. Because I've gotten gigs. I know gigs, but I've gotten, I made contacts and made, commissions off of people I've met through Twitter, that kind of thing. So I have made, it has allowed me to make some money. And that being the case, I'm not speaking like William Shatner. And but I understand why people like, okay, I'm using this as a communication app, not to be bombarded by people like, I heard you got on your knees for a gig, to get your job. You didn't do it for hard work, that kind of stuff. Oh,
are you referencing DNC's little
Yes, I am.
There? We might as well talk about that because that, that was, he kind of stepped over the line a little bit on that one. I noticed most people that commented on that are obviously all his supporters, and pretty much everyone was like, dude, what the heck? Not cool.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's his deal.
And it was like 2 days after he was talking about how he's a comics pro and he's got to be professional. And then I had literally just watched his live stream because I missed the live stream. I watched the recording of it, and he was talking about how Antarctic Press is good, and their owner talked to him, and he was a really great guy, and he was all emotional. And the very next thing I saw him post was like, they got down on their knees and all this stuff, and I was just like, oh my goodness, really? Like,
well, actually, he didn't think was the she was a writer, or was it? I think it was a writer that he said that she sucked her way to the top.
Wow.
It was like apparently a friend of Patrick Zurcher's, and that's what the reason Pat he went off. He's like, yeah, screw it, I hate him. He's like, he went from, hey, let's unblock people, let's be nice, and he's like, screw it all, burn it to the ground. Block everyone.
I thought he was more, I mean, he was a pro, but I thought he was more kind of in the Comicsgate community, maybe on the borderline. But now he's, yeah.
Oh no, he's a lefty. He's a card carrying lefty. He said that openly. And the only reason people try to people that weren't blocked, like, hey, I know this person. They just happen to follow the guy. It's like happening to follow, President Trump. And in doing so, it's like you label, so everybody that follows him is evil. It's like maybe they want to know what the guy's doing, in that kind of thing. And then he's like, okay, he reevaluated things. And then he's
It
like,
always seemed more moderate. Like Patch Zurcher was kind of one of the pros we could all still talk to, and is it just really in the last day or so he's kind of...
He was making signals that he wants kind of more politeness and friendliness in the industry, right? And yeah, so the asking people to unblock other people, that was a moment of Pat trying to say let's get along. And then as things got personal, then Pat went back to being feisty and blocking me. And what I asked him, I think he was mad at a fan, and I said, the guy asked you a question, and then I got blocked. And all right, I'll be honest, I probably said one more thing to Pat. I probably said what I say to him. I probably like wrote a quote where I said, "Oh no, customers are asking me questions," and I knew I was being a smart aleck, and I was probably going to get blocked, and that's what happened. So, all right, so King, you've touched on something really important, and that's hypocrisy. So I don't want to give DNC a break just because I like his channel or just because he got me back into comics, and I don't want to hold a grudge against Mark Waid and Mags Visaggio forever just because they went after, my boy DNC. I want to be straight with people who are on my side of the political fence or not on my side of the political fence. And so that might be where kind of like the trust issue comes in. If someone comes after me, is it because they are angry and they've I've said something mean to them and now they're just swapping the shit with me. So I can't get upset if I gave them grief and then they give me a little grief back. I guess what I want to say is I want to see forgiveness on comics Twitter. So if I'm willing to forgive DNC being a jerk from time to time, I love him, but he is that. He is a jerk on the internet sometimes. I also want to be able to forgive Mags Visaggio. If Mags Visaggio starts making great books, and I'll check him out. If Mark Waid, I have no problem checking out Mark Waid's old great stuff that people dig. I'm not going to boycott everything Mark Waid's ever done, but I have a trust issue with people like Mark Waid, at least in terms of talking about them about politics or something. I'm probably never going to talk to Mark Waid about politics or Mags Visaggio about politics, but at least DNC will kind of chat with you about it. And I see him as a kind of a flawed person where lightning struck. The situation was right where he could be in a position to say something and have a lot more people listen to him. I see him as a flawed person who became part of a good thing. And to his credit, I think when people tell him you shouldn't be doing this, generally over the course of his channel, I have seen him make efforts to amend that. And I can't just like let him off the hook and say you were not a jerk just because you're my friend. But I also have had moments in my life where I've flown off the handle on someone on Facebook, and then I'll feel bad about it the next day. So I guess the question we have is, are people flying off the handle and later they look back and say, oh, I shouldn't have flown off the handle, or are people manipulating people? So as you've talked about DNC, you kind of talked about it as if DNC is pulling strings, right? There's maybe like a willful manipulation aspect to the Twitter drama to promote himself. I've sensed that in how you've talked about it. Is there maybe kind of a willful manipulation on the part of comics pros to ostracize people with the wrong political views or with problematic aspects to either their comic work or their online behavior? It's almost the Donald Trump debate, issue for issue, right? So what people would say, oh, Donald Trump is so immoral, but he upset the SJW. So what are you going to do? Is being anti-SJW enough to vote for the man for president? And I used to tell this joke. No one worked harder to elect Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump, and no one worked harder to elect Donald Trump than every SJW on the internet. They got on there and were nasty to people all day, and that made the people who weren't Donald Trump fans say, okay, to get some SJW tears, I might vote Donald Trump. DNC has that vibe to him, where he's got a combative personality. He will say jerky things, but he's also saying jerky things to people who I've never seen him go after. Actually, no. Okay, I'm gonna roast my boy DNC a bit. He went after Dennis Hopeless once, and it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that raw or anything. He pretty much just kind of joked that Dennis Hopeless was a little too milquetoast and a little too lovey-dovey and friendly on his Twitter. And I roasted DNC and said, you keep talking about comics not being polite. Now here's someone who's ridiculously polite and has encouraged me to go get Jean Grey because of that. And now you're roasting him for being too polite. But the general thrust of who he makes fun of are people who are kind of jerks, right? So a aspect of him making fun of Max Visaggio is that Max Visaggio makes really lame comics that it's fun to point and laugh at. I don't know. It's rough because you don't want to be a hypocrite, but then the people who come after you, they sort of instill this herd mentality in you. Oh, you're against me? Well, then I better go join up with these people who are not against me. And it can be dangerous, but sometimes it can also be necessary. If your career is on the line, if a lefty comics pro group says we don't want you around, where are you going to go? If another group of people, even if they're like salty or if they're hypocritical on Twitter, if they're willing to give you the time of day, then you'll almost kind of naturally end up there. And I worry about that because what was once a hobby, a very universal, left to right, you could read and have fun with superhero stories, has become a culture war. We've thrown that term around. I think it's a fair term to describe what's going on comics Twitter. We're yelling at each other. We're having real arguments. Some of these arguments are important to have, and you can't just pretend. But you can't tell a story about a superhero being a hero without saying what is right, what is a good thing for a hero to do, and that assumes that morality exists, that there's such a thing as doing the right thing. And so I think that the SJW left that I'm worried about, they see comics as a vehicle for I don't know, deconstructing morality, whatever it is. And DNC maybe unfortunately has become sort of the one guy you can point to and say, okay, this is the example of what happens when push comes to shove. And that's made people rally to him who may have more of a political interest than just a neutral interest in comic books. Like they might just they might just be buying the books that DNC tells them to buy because they enjoy DNC's content, not because they have any particular interest in comic books or quality in comic books. And I'm kind of in between those two extremes, I think, because I tell people don't just go after Anarchic Press just because they and DNC had a salty interaction. We still want to support good books that come out of Anarchic Press, don't we?
Yeah,
but I also
especially small publishers like that. Their margins aren't very big. It just seems cruel to pick on the little guy, and they're like the littlest of the little guy. It's not even like Dynamite or Onipress or something. It's freaking Antarctic.
But I think they predate. Dynamite because they were dynamic.
They've been around for a bit. They've been around since '84, but they're still tiny, microscopic.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like kind of a mom and pop deal. It's like the corner store. It's not even the Ace Hardware. It's like Ruth and Tim's hardware store or whatever. That kind of thing.
For sure.
It's not even a name for it. It's like very like it ain't even like Ace Hardware. It ain't Home. It definitely ain't Home Depot. But
no.
But to see that happen, and a lot of it comes down to there are the positive, like anytime, like if I hear or see stuff like Richard, he's being attacked. Well, you play with fire, you're gonna get burned. It's gonna, to say, he's innocent, he's never attacked anyone. Well, even in a joking manner, I'm just messing with you, just ribbing you. That's roasting you. I'm just roasting you. Don't worry about it. It's just a prank, bro. It's just a prank. And it's funny. It's like I try not to do that. I try not to. There's certain stuff I'll say. Like there was a woman I saw tweet. There's a woman with these really bad wrinkles on her forehead. She looked like 20, 30 something. These really bad wrinkles, really deep. She got a lot of skin on her forehead. And I had to go and grab a GIF or an image of it was Klingon, it was Chancellor Gowron from Star Trek. It's Klingon, High Council. She comes from a great house. Like called her Klingon because of her hair and her forehead, and the ridges. Yes, is that a little mean? Yes, it is. Am I going to that person's Twitter and like, haha, you look like a dirty Klingon, haha, something like that? No.
Yeah, adding the person.
I see there's a difference. Like I see something, like I fight the urge. That's a lot of the time. It's like, is it worth it? Like, how am I? If it's funny enough, yeah, I'll do it. But most of the time, it ain't. Like 99.999% of the time, it's not worth it. Whatever. Just move on. Do something else. But apparently, while we're talking, Patrick Zurcher is on the warpath, going after everybody. He's very. I will not repeat what he says on some of this stuff, but he's also going against like, okay, do you support? Talking to Ethan Van Sciver, you support Myers then, or is it? You should be saying Meyer. Ethan, given his comments about our colleagues sucked their way to the comic industry, is a effing the other F word. I don't know if you want that said on your stream. No. Is a receptacle for orgasmic fluid. Wow. And is a effing crazy person. This isn't how we work with each other. This is the business. Basically, he's like, even though he is right, even though like, the way he's going about it, so yeah, whatever. But Ethan's trying to play, like kind of a, hey, I'm just a guy here doing my work. But he is like, oh, I invited Richard to my wedding, and like he can't hide the connection. You don't just invite some random YouTuber to your wedding. Yeah, crazy people do that. But I don't know. I don't know, but it is kind of funny to see this stuff play out. But I really think that in the end, I do even though I'm so cynical, supermassive black holes, gamma ray bursts, solar flares, all that stuff, I do think that things will be better for creator-owned works, like people that are putting their stuff out. Hell, went from having Comixology, which was the only place really, quote unquote end all be all of the digital distribution. Not having Comic Central, like you have other options, other stuff is out there. There's a lot of people like, oh, they're going to be breaking new ground. I'm like, how?
It broke new ground.
It broke new ground. I know what that is. And
I do love Red Letter Media. Me and Larry have been enjoying that.
Yeah, I haven't caught it yet.
Oh, you gotta what? We'll link you to it. They do movie reviews mostly, but it's really funny, dry, satirical. It's really big. They've got like 1 million subscribers.
Rogue One would probably be the best one to start with, wouldn't it? As far as the half in the bag, yeah. Best one. ATSTs! ATSTs!
It's very funny. I like their nerd crew too. Is a really
that hurts too much because it's so accurate.
It's
very
really
cool.
Good.
Is it check cleared yet? But it's not a lot of things like these people that do if someone were to ask and nobody has, like, well, Larry, would you be reading Jawbreakers in the future? I don't see myself doing that. I wouldn't see myself if someone gifted it to me, I'd like, no, thank you, give it to somebody else. I might enjoy it because I'm not gonna, oh, you're virtue signaling. I wouldn't want it. I'm like, no, thank you. And like, would you pirate it? I wouldn't even pirate it. Honestly, I wouldn't even waste my time. Like, oh my God, Larry, this is the funniest book. It's so bad. Like, okay, whatever. I'm good. I'm fine. Thank you. I'll live without it. I'll take your word for it. It's like life's too short for that stuff. I still got a ton of comics to read through. Yeah, I've not touched. But it's weird to see, the past, present, and future. Gerry Conway being the past, and the future being uncertain. I don't see it being what it is now with the dynamic. Really, Marvel and DC. There's a lot of people. The comics are dying. Comics is a medium. It's like saying music is dying. Yeah. Industry-wise, it should have died a long time ago. It should have died like in the comic industry. It should have died. Same thing with the music industry in '99 when Napster came out. Music industry should have died then because by now they would have been rebuilt. Same thing in the comics. By now it'd be something much healthier.
They say comics are dying. What they really should be saying is print media is dying and dead. Like newspapers, magazines, everything. I don't see why they don't see the bigger picture. It's just comics.
I disagree with that. I don't think the print medium is actually dying. What happens is the print medium, as we know it, the newsstand is gone because there's other ways to get your stuff. Trade paperbacks, people, they fly off the shelves. The collections. And another thing, the whole Jawbreaker is breaking new ground and all that. But it's like, it made so much money. It's like, oh, that's a top tier book. You can't compare an OGN, original graphic novel, with a monthly title. You can't compare that. There's, to my knowledge, the last one of those is like that Wonder Woman book that Jill Thompson put out. There's also supposed to be that Thanos book that Jim Starlin and Alan Davis were working on, the one they canceled for the Thanos miniseries Thanos series that just ended, right before the movie came out. It's done. That kind of thing.
Starlin.
And also he made more money with KG Beast and Batman v Superman than he did from Thanos, than from Gamora, all this stuff.
Yeah,
and Drax
Marvel
too.
Screwed him over bad.
That's just
the
him.
thing.
Everybody else. Everybody.
He created freaking Thanos, right? And 6 months before the movie comes out, they basically shuttle him out of there. They're like,
January last year, actually. And that's
he's
the revelation
you're
came
done.
Again.
Yeah, so corrupt.
Well, it's funny to see how they screwed so many people over, but when they did the Heroes War, while they were hurting financially, they threw millions of dollars. Because when I say Richard's going to be bringing home about it's $150,000, give or take. That's to him alone. So you could start a business, you do stuff, but business ain't for everybody. And comics is not like the standard small business. You can do it from home and certain stuff. But who you gonna get? So. There's I know Rags is saying he's gonna have a statement and everything like that coming soon. And one theory I popped in my head is he'll leave Anarchic Press and he'll join Richard's startup publishing company or whatever. That's because he maybe the contracts haven't been signed with Rags or something like that. That kind of crazy theory. Oh, he's joining a thing, and a couple other people like Mitch Breitweiser. He's got his Red Rooster comic that he's been working on. And so, and that's another thing. Mitch and his wife, Elizabeth, and Betty, they are, not only are they just cool people, but they're damn, honestly, she's my favorite. I'm torn. There's another colorist I know who does beautiful work too, but Betty's work is so damn good. She's the one that does the work for Kill Be Killed. A lot of the Brubaker comics, the crime comics that Brubaker puts out through Image. That's another guy. He just said screw Marvel, and he left and just does his own thing.
Yeah,
up to doing Captain America and everything, kind of making Captain America. No Brubaker, no Captain America that you see in the movies. Really, you can't say they still have Captain America, but not that Captain America, not that kind of spy movie style Captain America. And but if so, they do that. Good luck to. I'd say good luck to them. Begrudgingly, I couldn't give Richard my money because he would be giving me money. He would buy that book.
What does a good comic book industry look like to you if we were to fast forward a few years? What do you say
5 years in the future?
Yeah.
Okay, 5 years in the future, you're going to have a proliferation of how you get proliferation of records, vinyl record manufacturers. That's happening. They're making more vinyl records now than they're producing CDs. What was old is new again. And I do think that comics, which is a boutique item, that you'll see more akin to the European graphic novels, like the likes of. Have you ever heard of Black Sad?
No, but tell me about
Black
it.
Sad is it's basically a noir story. Think of the movie L.A. Confidential, any of those 1940s black and white noir stories. And it's about this kind of man cat. Everybody's like, there's a guy that's part rat. There's a pelican person. And it's the whole world. But it deals with everything from racism to political intrigue. There's a guy who's is he a communist? Is he a Nazi? That kind of thing. Some stuff going on. There's a woman who is, she isn't pure. She isn't pure. As far as she hides like she's got a patch of skin, so it's like equating her to being a mixed race, like black parentage and white parentage and everything like that, kind of like a mulatto. And so having that kind of controversial, but with, I think it's a deer, if I'm not mistaken, or is it a polar bear? I think it's a polar bear. I think she's like supposed to be a polar bear, but it's like a dark patch of fur or something like that along those lines, and stuff like that. There's like, but very allegorical, but with great art and great writing and everything like that. But there were like each story is like 50 pages each. So I think that's going to be more boutique comics, and so more, and also kind of taking up what they kind of did for like the kind of the digital, the more PDFs, more CBZ files, that kind of thing, and also allowing people to where what's the name of that site? Was it Indie Planet, the one where you can order print on demand comics directly to you? Like
that's a cool idea.
Yeah, I think this already exists, but like that proliferating, more people doing that. So it's like, the more people that do that, you think, well, why did you go here? But maybe this other site offers you more and has more variety. Like you have like one shop over here that has like one digital storefront shop has these group of books that have signed on exclusive to that. So you have to go over here, and then another exclusive over there. So still have comic stores. It definitely changed. It'd be more multimedia. I think that's my hope at the very least. Still have. I don't think monthlies would be as popular. I think that's going to wane, but they'll milk it till they can't anymore.
I'll be honest. If Marvel and DC were not doing the digital code giveaways with their physical comics, I would be buying significantly less comics this year, because I'm not really buying to collect at this point. I'm buying just to enjoy stories. So when they give me the free digital giveaway, I figure, well, what the heck? I'll spend $4 for a digital, or I'll spend $4 for physical and get digital. So it's a real big push for me. I'm not a collector. I'm just a reader. And what I'm clicking with is, I think that DNC is wrong that you can save all physical comics as they once were, and I'm sad about that, because I've told the story about how my local comic book shop owner really helped me. He introduced me to a series I had, Valiant Comics. He introduced me into something I had very little interest in. He cautioned me against wasting my money, so that you can't de-emphasize the importance of something like that to helping, because it was my first time buying comics for myself as an adult. It wasn't my parents buying comics for me for Christmas when I was a kid. So you can't de-emphasize the importance of that. But I think that King is right. We can't go back to the 90s era and the cheapness of digital. Now, so you were talking about European comics. Am I understanding you right? Kind of, it's almost like it's a sexy book. It looks really cool on your coffee table. So it's a lot cooler than the floppy magazine, because it's got a cool cover, it's got a cool interior art, that kind of thing. Sort of a sexy vinyl record style of
higher quality hardback kind of thing, right? Like Valerian, wasn't that one of those?
Well, yeah, Valerian was a series that came out in the mid-'60s. There's another thing. There's a lot of these European comics. There's Blueberry, which is by Mobius and everything. It's a Western comic, but it looks like it came out from the 80s, 90s. It's so beautiful and detailed. It's Jean Giraud, Mobius. He's the grandfather of cyberpunk. He's the first guy that basically created cyberpunk, and he's French, But there's Blueberry from the 60s. There's also Valerian, which without Valerian, you wouldn't have Star Wars and a lot of other things because of the visual stylings. It's just, and Valerian's beautiful as well. They're actually, for every now and then, you'll see the first volume of Valerian on Comixology for free.
Oh, man.
It's like 80 pages, but it's like, I actually think that's the first two stories they combined into one. You have stuff like Tintin, and the first two books of Tintin are actually, they're hard to come by because they're controversial. Yep. The first one's Tintin in the Land of the Soviets and Tintin in the Congo, and they're not that bad. They're not really, when I say it's not that bad, it's like, I'm not talking about content, I'm talking about structure, because they're both early on in the series and everything. This is before, Hirsch got the ball rolling and everything. He was still kind of learning the ropes, like kind of like getting the feel for the characters and everything. Tintin in the Congo has some funny stuff. Tintin, the car breaks down on the train tracks. This Congolese train comes, it hits the car, the train falls over, the car doesn't get damaged. It's just, and then Snowy, Tintin's dog, gets taken by a chimpanzee into a tree, and the chimpanzee, scary chimpanzees, we know that now, they'll bite your fingers off and eat your testicles and all this other horrible stuff, and rip out your jaw and eyes, and they'll take your fingers first. Everybody's like, oh, animals, they're not evil. That's evil. They know how to dismember you. And they take your genitals away. They know to do this. That's what they do to other chimpanzees. And they also hunt and destroy monkeys. Like chimpanzees will eat monkeys. They don't just eat like leaves and bananas. That's why that's the only good thing about that Tim Burton Planet of the Apes. They actually made chimpanzees scary because Zira and Cornelius from the original movie. That's not that scary. They're just decent folks. Even for chimpanzees. But back on top.
Pretty scary in real life.
Oh God, they are. Oh God, they are.
They're kind of horrible.
God, what was I talking about? Now I'm just thinking Planet of the Apes and
European comics.
European comics. Oh yeah, but the Bande Dessinée, I think that's what we call them. Yeah. But with the European comics, I honestly think the American and the kind of the world comic, especially the American side, will go more towards that, where the comic is an event. Everything is like not as far as like the event comics, but each thing is like a contained story. You look at Marvel and DC now, even DC. Everybody's like, oh, I read the guy recommended Damage, and I was like, I don't know about that, but I still think the story got it because I like Tony Daniels, so I'll pick it up either way. And it's like, it's the Hulk, but with no story to it. It's just a bunch of splash pages and action, nothing to it. Two issues, and DC's trying to get me into it. I'm like, nope, not gonna work. Never gonna work. There's nothing you can do.
Someone tried to get you into it. That was me.
Well, you tried, and another person's like already reading it, and like, it's good. And then I was like, I was gonna pick it up either way because of Tony Daniel. I've been a Tony Daniel fan since I was young, since the days of the 10th. And you've never heard of the 10th, have you, Marmaduke?
No.
The 10th is about a girl with she's an Esper, so she's got psychokinetic abilities. She is downright beautiful. Her best friend, who's beautiful as well, usually likes to lounge around in brawn panties while on the phone and twirling the phone thing. And the book starts out with limbs being ripped off, kind of like it's the best way I could describe it. It's like one of those really messed up animes, but in comic book form. Like it's like Wicked City, but less disturbing, much less disturbing, and less rape.
I've got the vibe. I mean, even mainstream manga from the 80s, there was a definite. It's almost as shocking as some of the old horror comics before Frederick Wortham started complaining about the seduction of the innocent. There was definitely a vibe where they were going for like shocking content in work, probably aimed at young teenagers. Yeah.
This right here is like it really is that, because it was Image too, because they were able to put that out without the comics code and everything, no really restrictions. But same thing with like the Max. Like the Max is another book most people haven't heard of, and even though it has some social topics and everything, and it kind of deals with some mental illness and homelessness and stuff like that, it's such a strange but beautiful book. Like the way there was an MTV, you got an MTV series, for the love of God. It didn't last that long, but this is back in the early days. It was such a weird time to be, comics. Like there was, Ultra Force. Ultra Force had a cartoon. The comics are owned by Marvel, but the reason you don't see any of the Ultra Force characters out in print, basically the contracts, because of Malibu owned Ultra Force. So when Marvel bought Malibu, not because of the characters, but for the digital coloring process, which Image was using. The first thing, if the Image was under Malibu, and then Malibu got bought out, so they did their own thing. But Malibu, they had the rights to Ultra Force, but the contracts, they cost too much money. So every person that worked on that character had to be paid. So it cost too much money to actually produce the comic. Because if you even produce it with the same people, they'd still have to they'd basically have to get paid. So they're like, Marvel's cheap, so we established that. But Malibu also bought out a company before they did the whole thing, and bought out Aircell, and Aircell Entertainment actually produced, picked up after somebody else, the Men in Black comic. That's why Men in Black, if they put out it doesn't say directly, but it was a Lowell Cunningham who created Men in Black, and it was basically Miami Vice but with aliens, and it was about alien drug dealers and stuff like that. And that's why you haven't seen a Men in Black comic, because of the rights. It's a lot of deal with the rights. Like, that's why I haven't seen any of the old 80s Men in Black comics reprinted. So it's like a lot of weird legal stuff. Marvel's cheap and everything, but you got to treat your creators right. And I think in the upcoming few years, you're going to actually be treating people better. That, you know, and I whether it be something along the lines of Patreon, or you're guaranteed, you know, like, well, not guaranteed, but, you know, you should be guaranteed, like, you know, comics. Like, there's a guy, Charles Forsman. Apparently, I've not done this. I've not looked it up myself because I don't use Patreon anymore. But he does, like, mini comics, like, every month. You pay, you know, your patron, put your money in, you get mini comics sent to you in the mail. And since they're mini, they don't cost that much to ship, like, you know, 50 cents. Yeah. Because most comics cost like $5, $6, $7 because of flat rate shipping. It's just so big. You know, you're 7x10, and that 7x10 you can't fit in a single standard letter.
I was thinking too, you were talking about comics, the model and the way they're being sold and stuff changing. Instead, because I'm thinking they might go the other way. You're thinking they might get just kind of focus on the higher end market with the European style, you know, hardcover books and stuff. But I'm kind of thinking the new way to go would be more the alternate route, you know, where it's like $250 for a regular size comic book, and they just use the newsprint. And honestly, I'm kind of not too pleased with some of the new print, like the paper they use. It seems to get warped and stuff, like on Doomsday Clock. Yeah. It has a really hard cover, you know, even though it's a floppy, it's got like a kind of an extra thick cover, which would be cool. But then the pages inside are this new type of paper that just warps with like the slightest bit of moisture. But I have older comics from the 90s that have just been sitting in a pile on my shelf, and they aren't all warped, you know. So it's like, go back to newsprint, drop the cost.
It has character.
Yeah, you know,
good.
Feels great.
That sometimes going back to the past is the way to go. And then they got to do something about distribution. You know, Diamond is taking too big of a cut. You know, the reason these books really end up having to cost $4 or $5 or $6 is because Diamond's taking 50% of the money. You know, and I think maybe that's part of how Alterna keeps their costs down. They might have their own distribution system. I don't know. Well,
I actually think it's not 50%. I think it's about a third of the. Like, well, I understand it. I tried understanding this like years ago. I was considering buying a comic store or buying into it. Me and two other brothers, not my brothers, but their two brothers. And I was looking through the comic store's financial records, and oof, it's like some months get really lean. And I'm like, I don't like this. That's not a good investment. I was like, this is not a good investment. I'm glad I didn't buy it.
Yeah.
Because I found out also the store didn't have a solid contract. There was an anthill inside that had a cracked foundation. The HVAC unit was messed up. The bathroom it would overflow. A lot of other stuff. There's like just really, I was like, I could fix this stuff for the most part. The HVAC is a little tricky, but plumbing I can deal with. The foundation, not so much. I can conceal it. I can for the moisture and everything like that. And also the ants. So we had a fire ant hill inside the comic book store underneath the reduced table. And we knew about this because a woman stepped in it. She was waiting for her husband. And
it sounds like something from a sitcom, like The Simpsons.
They had a cat in the store. It's basically like this. If the Homer ran the android's dungeon, and I could. It's so bad. They had a cat in there that would lay on its belly and it's so cute, and it would attack you like a face hugger and scratch children. It made a kid bleed, and I wanted to kick the cat. I wanted to kick the cat in the ribs. You know, and like I was like, if I do this, I'm just gonna, you know, I would probably kill it, and then I wouldn't feel bad because it's like it's hurting children, and I'm not really a big fan of kids, but like I said, don't like bullies. That includes animals too. So it was just kind of whatever, but yeah, it's running like comic industry as well. You know, like the alternative method would be great. My concern is the floppy format, because if we get more of the same, let's say Marvel does the price point, I can only see it going up because people have gotten to the point they're so used to it's like they they don't put it all the way in. They do it little bit by little bit, inch at a time. They don't just ram the prices all the way up. They just do it little bit by little bit, and that's what Marvel DC have done. You know, like DC is like they could have kept their prices really low. They could take the hit and keep the and keep the books coming out. But you're paying what, $4 or $5 for 20 pages of content, sometimes 16. Like there were some Guardians of the Galaxy comics only 16 pages. The main story is all that counts. I don't care if you have like sneak peeks for other stuff or behind the scenes material. That doesn't matter. You're paying $4 or $5 for. I'd pay that for my self-produced comics. I'll charge that much because of shipping and printing costs and other stuff, and to cover other things. But that's because it's me and me alone. So all the proceeds are going to me, not to this corporation, whatever. Because that artist has already been paid. Right. They're not being paid. You buy that comic from the store, you're just paying the store back for the money that they spent on the comic. That money ain't going to the artist, or to the writer. And that's another thing with the whole move the needle thing. I disagree with. Like, okay, how do you judge the move? It's like if you have a gauge, you have a needle on. Well, if you have empty, you have full. Okay, so what is the gauge? What is the end goal? It's like you fight a war, have an end goal. You fight World War I, surrender of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. You want full surrender or defeat, like outright destruction. That's a goal. Move the needle, okay? I see it as it's not a movement. It's just a means to an end, because it's like a movement actually has to have an end goal. It's like protesting. I find it so stupid. Because what's your end goal? It's just it's the voices of the unheard. No, it's just a bunch of people frustrated and impotent. They have to get outside. Like protest them, like action, like peaceful protest does nothing. Unfortunately, violence solves everything. I'm not kidding. You pull it down. Man. No war, no technology. We wouldn't be talking right now. The defense, DARPA created the internet. All right. No internet for spy stuff, we wouldn't have, we wouldn't be talking right now. Same thing with the computers. They had computers on the Apollo and all that other stuff, and the shuttles and everything. And they got smaller and smaller and smaller. And then, like people started building their own and everything like that. Proliferation. You have to have an end goal. That's why, you know how Watergate ended? G. Gordon Liddy got arrested. A bunch of other people got arrested. Nixon had to resign. Gerald Ford became president. That's how Watergate ended. How would Comicsgate end? That's the thing. It's BS. Same thing with Gamergate. It's BS. And like they move the needle. It's like, okay, when is the needle? A needle doesn't mean nothing. Needle goes up, needle goes down. It doesn't matter. Because if a needle's redlining the entire time, because I remember seeing an EBS tweet with a GIF. It was like a car redlining a needle. I'm like, you're gonna blow your engine, dude. Even I know that. I'm not a car person. You can't redline the entire time. I remember
we talked about that.
Yeah.
Didn't we talk? Yeah, we talked about moves.
We're kind of getting back to DNC. So, King. So you're talking about what is the purpose of what we're trying to what are we trying to accomplish by doing such and such about comics on YouTube or Twitter? And I checked out your channel because I kind of knew of you on Twitter, but I hadn't. There's so many people you can't in-depth look at everything, right? So I look at your work and I was really struck. You've got these 1-minute reviews of comics, and as I thought about it, I thought that's like not what you're supposed to do as a YouTuber. You're supposed to shoot for this like sweet 15-minute spot so you can make the YouTube bucks. But you're making that's just a really good idea. 1 minute, you tell me what a good comic is, and why it's good, and I hear you.
Those are my favorite.
Yeah, it is a much more effective type of video for convincing me to go get a book. So you have both talked about the Alterna model as a potential future, the European model as a potential future. I would ideally like to see a mix of both, where maybe I can get a really cheap book to see what's going on, but then I can get a really nice book later and plonk down extra if I really dig it. So Twitter and YouTube and all of the politics on Twitter and YouTube, I see that as the key for comics having any future, because YouTube's sort of become the hobby of everyone and their little kid. The little kids are all watching these let's players, and I don't really get this. I'm an old fart already. I don't get the style of humor of these weirdo let's players. But YouTube has become their entertainment model, and so then they hear of YouTube drama and political drama and video game drama and then comics game drama, and that's probably going to be the vehicle for where it's not just a few new people who came in with DNC. We're going to see wave after wave of young people as they're growing up coming into comics through YouTube and Twitter, and so the kind of content I see Larry King making. What I like is I will find people who will do something that's just completely different. So I'd seen tons of people doing videos on comic books they like. I'd never seen someone do a 1-minute video that's here's why this is a good comic. And I think about that a lot because what I want my channel to be is not a comics Twitter drama channel. I really want to convince people that this is a good comic book I read. Here's why it's good. Here's why you should go and buy it. So seeing the variety of approaches people have to making content gives you info on what you can then go do. So I might just totally rip off Larry King's model and do these just 1-minute reviews of comics saying, go get this comic, come on. And
I'm not going to lie, I thought of stealing that idea too. It's my favorite idea of Larry's.
Seriously, do it. I'm not kidding, because here's the thing. I look at it this way. There's something. The reason I do them like that, and I had somebody say, like, I forgot which video it was. Someone's comment, like, and I got more than one like this as well. It's like, you're basically just saying, "Hey, this is a good comic," and that's the end. And I'm like, yeah, but it's like there's people that do those parody channels, like, yeah, this comic good. It's like kind of pulling the Plinkett thing from Red Letter Media. You'll maybe get this, Marmaduke, but it's like. It's the most disappointing comic since my son. That kind of thing. You could do a review like that. It's like,
yeah, I'd keep this comic in the basement with all the other skeletons.
That kind of, whatever. You could joke around about that. Actually, that would be like a Mr. Plinkett of comic books. But I couldn't do that because I'd have to, I'd have to get, instead of Totino's, I'd have to get something else like,
there
like
are
combos. Hey, combos. There you go, combos instead of Totino's.
There are Mr. Plinkett like parodies and parody channels. That DICK
guy, yeah, that him. He's kind of like that.
There's a few. There's like fake Plinkett and stuff, and they mimic him pretty well.
Well, it's though with the reason I do the 1-minute thing is because when I've seen comics and movies or in backgrounds or stuff like that. Like I was watching a video. This guy was doing a review of Bride to Reanimator or one of those things, and I just have like a lot of stuff. I have it on the background, and on the corner of my eye behind him, I see he has a couple of Judge Dredd books and a couple other books as well. And I stopped the video and turned my head to read what he has on the shelf, because it's like that's always intrigued me, like what somebody has on the shelf, what books they read. It's kind of because I guess it tells me about them. It tells me like it's like one of the problems like you're you fake geek girl, you're quizzing. Like the reason I quiz because I would like to know if we have something in common. It's not like you gotta prove to me what's the password, what comics have you read. No, like, I'd like to know. It's like, okay, I read some Judge Dredd, I read Walking Dead, I read, say American Flag by Howard Chaykin. I'm like, holy yeah, I love that book. That's like one of my favorite books of all time. Talk about it. And I like that, but it's like, and I like to, and a lot of my stuff is like these out of print trade paperbacks, these kind of things. It's like, but it's these. I try to, and I don't. Like, what am I going to do? Like, oh my God, Marmaduke and DC Fans United ripped me off. They ripped me off, Robin. We go Howard Stern. No, that's not going to work. I don't care. And like, make it, make money off of it. Whatever. What am I going to do about it? Like, I do find it funny people that think they can make a YouTube living, considering how many times the YouTube has screwed them over.
Right. It's a total joke, right? I saw these people, kids really, get rich. And I had a conversation with my boss, and he said, can you explain to me what PewDiePie is? And I said, well, I'm not a PewDiePie fan. But to him, it was just sort of magical that someone could play video games and make lots of money. And even though I didn't watch it.
Very rare. I don't know how you hit that exact mark. And it's even harder now. Like, my channel used to be monetized, but I don't have 1,000 subscribers. Like, you have to meet all these benchmarks just to be monetized, and then on top of that you have to get a certain amount of watch time within a month and each month it resets, and you have to earn up to $100 so you don't get anything. So if you earn $90 that month, you don't get it.
Well, another thing is, like, I remember signing up for YouTube, like, well, this is back early days, like 2006, 2007, and I remember you could customize the name of your channel, like youtube.com/whatever. Back then, now you have to have 100 subscribers. You know, it's like, I wanted to call mine Larry King Undead, just like my Twitter, just like everything else. You know, kind of like, you know, like, so you can type it into Google and a bunch of things pop up, you know, kind of, you know, brand recognition, you know, like, you know, synergy. But I can't do it until I get 100 subscribers. Like, I've been doing YouTube really for about 2 months now, 3 months. And, you know, like, I've been trying to have like a video up every day. Found out the hard way.
Happened to me. It's going to happen to you. You're going to get suckered out.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, well, even with the minute videos, because, like, no one realized, like, those who do watch them, it's like, you don't realize that's probably the 5th or 6th take on that video. And it's like, because I do it in one cut, no edits, no nothing, but boom. And so if I screw up, like, so one time I knocked my Xbox 360 controller, and, like, you like cursing, and like, and I forgot to stop recording, so I had to go back, and then I have to go through and pick out which one was the right one, like all that stuff. It's like kind of a comedy of errors. But
yeah,
as far as getting stuff out there, like, you know, Mr. Marvel, his Wanpool character, you know, the pastiche, he's doing his thing, and I want the best for him, because he is the kind of, like, he is like when you say like the comics creator YouTube, you know, he also does YouTube as well, YouTuber as well, the Twitter YouTuber user, all that. He is the kind of person you want. Rags too, but Mr. Marvel's doing everything himself. You know, the art, lettering, coloring, everything is him, and he's an amazingly talented artist. And I'm glad that he's actually coming into his own. It's like a late start to him. Like, doesn't matter, man. You are killing it. And it's like I've always loved
Wanpool.
Wanpool's fun. Like, I love writer.
Brilliant.
I love the one-stop shops more than anything else. The you know, creators do everything. Like I do the same thing. I did a stream the other night, and I showed off the cover for a comic that I'm working on. It's a rough cover, of course. Like, I did it just like kind of so I don't have as a reference for myself, but I do my own thing as well, because I want either myself to blame or myself to take credit. I don't want to be like, well, they screwed up and it wasn't me. Like, I want to be able to thank myself or blame myself, or be like, okay, learn from my mistakes, and not have like, okay, because that person I paid to do a job, they screwed up. Because I've actually had that happen years ago. I was like, never again. Never again. I haven't done it since. I had somebody letter and color a comic and they screwed it up. You know, I don't know if their examples were BS, but they screwed me over, and I had to do everything myself, and it didn't look much better.
Doing a whole comic by yourself is going to take a really long time.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Well, not really though. I mean, I'm doing 16 pages. I got this. I'm going for it's $5, 16 pages, full color cover, black and white interiors, ash can size, which is folded 8.5 by, it's 8.5 by 11 folded in half, so it's 5.5 by 8.5, so it's a little smaller than standard comic size, about manga size. And it's basically what if RoboCop was a sex robot.
Yeah.
So it's called Neon Trash. I can actually show you the cover if you're interested.
I want to see it.
Okay.
What you're talking about with your creative work, interesting, because we've had a really good conversation. We have disagreed, and it's a 180-degree disagreement, right? And I'm not going to gloss over that. But
and to be honest, that's part of why I had. I mean, it kind of worked out that way, but it was part of why I had you two both on, was because you're a little, you know, you're both real civil, but you would probably disagree. I kind of anticipated that.
I disagree with DC too. I mean, that's the thing. It's like it's like you know, you and me, Marmaduke. We only I'd say we only agree about 20-30%. If I'm being generous, like of things, like 20-30%. But it's called civility, and that's hard. And I'm trying to be civil even on Twitter, even though I'm not talking to the person. Like, oh no, if I don't I don't call this person. If I call this person out, they might come after me, or might show up in my stream. Oh no, like that kind of thing. No, it's trying to be a decent human being. But like even these things, we've had our disagreements. It's like,
sure.
You have your opinion, I have mine. Just keep on going, whatever. It's not like let's agree to disagree. Like no, just keep going. Okay.
No, yeah, we're just gonna disagree on some things, and that's all right.
And one thing that of that 20%, when you talk about creating work, that's something
that's a pretty low ratio.
Yeah, well, it may have been more than that. I mean, some of it was we agreed on some principles. We mostly just disagreed on, this or that YouTuber, right? But
yeah.
A takeaway I've had from the Antarctic press fallout is I want more than just DNC to succeed. So you guys probably haven't had the chance to watch this, but I did a live stream the day that DNC announced Splato Comics, and what I said is
nodes.
Yep, creating critical nodes and infrastructure is what I call it.
Yeah, you were holding the paper and you had YouTubers and stuff.
Yes.
YouTubers, artists, writers. I did actually watch that, but go ahead.
So the point of it was I want DNC to be the first success. So I want him to succeed, and then I want Rag Zombie to succeed, and I want Potus Thumb to succeed, and I want Mr. Marvel to succeed. All right, Larry King, I'm going to be watching you now. Now that I know you're making a comic, I'm going to be watching that, and I want you to succeed. I want you to get stinking rich, and then DNC, he's going to be trying to catch up.
Sorry to cut you off. I think you're actually Thump actually predates all that, like as far as success goes, because he's got not only the book, but he's got the rabbit, he's got the POTUS dolls and everything, or the stuffed animals. So he's got I'd say like when you have merchandise that damn adorable, and as far as horrible things that pop into my head and the nightmarish visions and all that stuff, and if even I can have that much of a sensitive side to like that right there, that's just he wins. Timothy Lim wins. Though Richard has bigger does not mean it's like the 6000 SUX American tradition. Like Timothy Lim, he's an immigrant. He came in here, did the right thing. He didn't jump the border. He came in, or first generation. I think it was, he's first generation. Either way, or whatever. But he did the thing. He made the thing, and it's adorable, great art, and it's all pretty much all by him. It's like majority him. And that's fantastic.
It's a success. It's an unbridled success.
That's the first one, so it's like good for him. But here's the sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
Hey, go ahead. It's your show, man. We're live, pal.
No, I was just trying to think of something else. Oh yeah, the guy you had on the other day on your live stream, because you had Mr. Marvel and two others, and the one guy draws
and Comic Rebirth Mortal Comics. And she does. She writes a comic, and in Rodrigo, he's Red Ninja Momiji.
Yeah, I'm thinking Rodrigo. He does the samurai stuff.
Yeah, Red Ninja Momiji.
Yeah, that's legit. That's like well drawn and everything.
Yeah, he writes it, did character designs, and he got one of Ed Bennett's artists from Ed Bennett's studio to illustrate it.
Okay,
and so,
no wonder it's so good.
And I was like, because he said he could have done. I think the way I understood it is like he could do it himself, but it'd take much longer. And it's like he's not as confident in his artwork. He's a good artist though, but he's like he wants a certain vision, so that's what he did. And someone said, "Well, you're okay with that, Larry, but you're not okay," because he had to pay out of his own pocket. He didn't have super chat money and all this and that. But that's just how it is. I mean,
that's real life.
Yeah, that's life though. But yeah, here's the bring this up the screen share and.
But his book's relatively successful too. I saw he sells it on Comixology, so I mean that's legit.
Yeah, it's like
that issue 1 of it, anyways.
Well, that was actually volume 1. It's
volume 1.
Yeah, it's the first volume. Yeah, it's but he's working on a second volume now, and we'll go ahead and share.
Cool.
Screen.
Oop.
And okay, this is a cover, the front and back cover.
Oh. So, okay.
Okay, then it's a, like I said, it's basically what if RoboCop was a sex doll. Former sex doll, like reprogrammed, that kind of thing. So, nothing like with comics covers. One thing I don't mind. Okay, I was going to go for something like this for the cover, forgive it. This is actually, if you were actually to look at this actual size, this would only be about 2 inches by 1 inch.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really, it's not that big. It's actually really tiny. I draw tiny so I can look at the bigger picture. I can zoom out and see what works and what doesn't, and then I blow it up digitally and illustrate it that way. So you can't say that she is not stacked. So it's a fun little comic and everything. But yes, it's hopefully. I don't want to put an exact date. Hopefully, the first week of June, I'll have everything done. But that's
pretty soon.
Even high.
Yeah, the thing about it is I got to fully ink it. Our pencils are done. I just got to ink it, letter it, and then do the front cover and back cover, which shouldn't take that long. Because basically all the work's done. I just got to basically finish it out, print it up, and print it up myself. Cut, staple, fold, all that stuff, and I'll be mailing them out. Like my goal is $5 a piece, including shipping and handling, continental United States. So make a bit of profit. But also, like, I figured, hey, it's creator owned. Also, I'm doing everything myself. Because there was one book I was looking at, it looked pretty good. It was on Etsy, one of those creator owned books. $5 for the book, $5 for shipping. I'm like, no, thank you. That's too much. I was like, hey, $5, everything's covered.
That's fair. I mean, Doomsday Clock's $5 an issue,
and you don't know story, and nothing happens. A book.
Oh man, you gotta wait like 2 months.
Of Seinfeld.
2 months per issue, and you finally get there, and you're like, "There's no Superman."
That cover.
No Superman.
You used the man, Dr. Manhattan, the variant cover. I was like, okay, that's going to happen at the end of the first issue. Like I was thinking, because you could actually go off of that. That's what I thought at first. That because you'd think like a good writer could do that. Jeff Johns used to be a good writer. Used to be. It's been a long time.
I don't know. I'm gonna hold off judgment on Doomsday Clock until it's done, but it's going very slowly.
You're paying $60 for this book.
I guess that's true.
You're gonna pay $60 to take 20 months, almost 2 years of your life for the book to come out. And if there's a book that's meant for waiting for trade, it's this. And even then, I'd be like, I'd buy it used or go to a library.
I think that's why DC doesn't mind it taking so long to come out, because they're going to be selling it, trade backs of it for the next 30 years, like Watchmen. So they're.
Dude,
that's their plan.
The whole book has to be as good as Watchmen to get real longevity. But
no way in hell. I'll call that right now. There's no way in hell. Like, you read that first issue of Watchmen, that's a game changer.
Yeah. A really good storyteller grabs you by the ear and
makes
holds
you
on.
care. Like, here's the thing. Like, this Doomsday Clock, the players in the game. I couldn't care less. Watchmen, when I first read it, I didn't know who any of these people were. When Rorschach shows up, I'm like, who is the dirty hobo hero? I need to know about this guy. I needed a character. And I didn't
good.
It was like, God, I loved it. It is like, yes, is it the greatest comic of all time? Arguably so, as far as complexity. Is it the most original? No, because the plot is a recycled plot from an episode of Outer Limits that they basically, Alan Moore threw in at the end of the book as a kind of an inside joke. For those who've seen the episode, the Fear, the Agents of Fear. It's basically a fake alien invasion. The world of peace
monster at the end comes from.
In the comic, in the TV show, in the episode, Architects of Fear is the name of it. The Outer Limits, I think season 2. And basically, it's about this guy who's an astronaut. He volunteers to be physically transformed into a weird otherworldly creature, like basically tentacle octopus monster thing. Doesn't even breathe oxygen. They go that far. They basically not terraform, but they turn his body into an alien life form. He has to breathe like methane or nitrogen, like full nitrogen, to survive. And it goes horribly wrong. He doesn't land in the like Yankee Stadium like he's supposed to during a game. He lands in some woods and he gets shot by some redneck. And basically the plan falls apart because the world doesn't get united, it just falls flat on its face. So it's kind of the inside joke with the yes, I spoiled a 60-year-old episode of a TV show, but
well, you know, that's so annoying when you're talking about something and you're just in a conversation, like you're talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths or something.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, okay, remember when Flash died or Supergirl died? They'd be like, spoiler alert! It's like, bro, come on, that came out, you know, when I was born. This book's over 30 years old, but they do that all the time.
If the thing about it is, if a book or a movie can be spoiled, then it's not that good. Then it's reliant so much on that spoiler. And I understand there's a lot of hyperbole, you know, the whole thing where it's like, oh, you know, oh, it's spoiled. It didn't. So it's not as much enjoyment. That doesn't mean spoiled. It's like, you know, this isn't like somebody making a soda flat or taking, you know, the air out of your tires. It ain't that. They're
exaggerating to begin with, because knowing one little plot point, even no matter how big it is, shouldn't ruin the whole story.
Right.
Yeah.
I knew that Darth Vader was Luke's father when I watched Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back for the first time.
Oh, man.
I was still really invested.
Yeah.
Because it works as a film in general. It works. It's a solid film. And
it's like the best movie ever, so.
Well,
it's up there.
Actually, I used to
SJW Star Wars.
I used to love Empire more, but after going back and watching New Hope,
yeah,
I watched. There was a UK broadcast somebody put on YouTube. It was like a 1980 or 81 UK broadcast of New Hope, and it was like
without all
the
the
news stories too, and it was like the commercials too. And it was really cool to see. But this is the unedited version. This is Han shot versus all that stuff. No extra CGI, and you watch it. There's a beginning, middle, and end. And there's a lot of people say, "Oh, George Lucas, he sucks. He couldn't even do nothing right." You watch that movie, it's like, "Oh, the movie is saved in editing." Are you telling me? So, the editors created the scene, wrote the scene, directed the scene when, you know, they're in the prison block and they're, "Well, we heard shots fired down there. Everything's fine down here. Everything's fine. Everything's good. How are you?" You know, and it doesn't work. It's like, "Look, we got company." You know, that kind of stuff makes it a little short for Stormtrooper. There's like that's the kind of stuff. I got a real bad feeling about this. And it has a better tone and works better for me because it's like when Obi-Wan just like gives up and dies, it's like I could help him out more as an ethereal being, as a Force ghost. That was it punched in the gut.
I remember, I remember being a little kid watching that. You know, I'm not old enough to have seen it in the theater until the special edition bullshit, but you know, I remember watching it in the living room on VHS, and you know, Obi-Wan Kenobi just let himself get killed, and I was like, "What the heck?" And I turned and looked at my parents, and they're just kind of like, "Yeah, it's how the story went." You know, you're right. A New Hope is really great. It's burned into my memory.
Yeah, it's
Empire is always put on a higher pedestal, though. But yeah, I'm a big advocate for A New Hope. It's arguably the best Star Wars movie.
I agree fully. Here's the thing: like Empire, though it gets so much love, and like, oh, this is the Empire of what Civil War was the Empire of the MCU. Now, what Infinity War is now the new Empire of the MCU. How many empires are we gonna have? You know,
I do love Empire, but it's more like scenes put together, you know, not to detract from it, but it's like, all right, there's the battle on Hoth, there's the asteroid field, whereas A New Hope, it's really in a classical sense like just a story, and you follow Luke through this real development story that's just so relatable too, especially growing up with that as a boy and everything, and just I don't know.
In the little moments like this, where Luke is like, "Hey, I want to leave home. I want to go be, you know, basically put my application in and become like, you know, like go to the academy, and you know, go and say, come on, wait till next season. I can save up and get somebody else to help out.
Another year. There'll be another year here. Season waiting another harvest. No, I can
exactly. And when they, you know. Owen and Beru look at each other, it's like, oh crap, you might know about. And you could look at that and like knowing the whole context, you know, with Vader and everything like that, it would make sense. It's like, and you know, they're like, well, why didn't Vader come back looking for? He's like, you know, even before the prequels, it's like, you know, why? Like, okay, he's going. The only reason, like, why would he? You know, his podunk hillbilly son. Why would he want to have that kid tie? You know, this is a guy who's choking people out, and he's a lapdog for the emperor. But this is a guy who's choking people out. He's bringing up his own son. Like he probably didn't care. You know, that's the way I looked at it. And it's like until his son could prove himself. It's like, you know, we'll leave out, you know, whatever. Once you become a threat or become possible to be, you know, manipulated and used, you mean nothing to me. Like, yeah, we could, like, there was no indication, like, you know, he was just a kid. He wasn't moving stuff in Owen and Beru on Mos Eisley and everything. You know, on Tatooine in his hut, like moving stuff around with you know, force push or whatever, or telekinesis or something. He didn't have power. He didn't have his power until he's like educated in the possibility of him, like the force moving through us and as a part of, you know, that kind of stuff. And then Han's like, you know, whatever, you're full of crap, you know, it's all luck, you know, it's, you know, that kind of stuff. But
the story is raw. You're just quoting the stuff from memory, and you're even like characterizing it. Right. Yeah. And it's a raw story, so it's bigger than a franchise. George Lucas probably didn't know he was making the Star Wars franchise when he told that story, because he told a freaking story. And maybe I'm trying to like wrap things up with a nice bow, but we've talked about creative people and individual drive, and you need that. There's no substitute for that. You can't copy paste the Star Wars formula and get a Star Wars story. You've got to have passion, and you've got to love the characters, and you've got to love inhabiting that world, and you've got to love the rush of it, and you've got to bring that into fruition. And I kind of see the role of YouTube and comics Twitter as this is our opportunity to tell each other about this stuff and say, hey, this person, maybe they're not at like Star Wars level yet, but they've got this passion, and I want to see them bring that to fruition. Check this out. So that's really what I'm hoping for comics people on YouTube and Twitter going forward, is this attitude that we are looking for what's good and what's raw and what's beautiful in art and stories, and we're helping each other find that stuff.
Yeah, see, I totally get that right there, and I echo that sentiment as far as there are stories out there. There are people telling stories, very interesting ones. Are they the most original? Most likely not. But are they fun? Are they entertaining? Do you feel like you're getting your bang for your buck? You know, are you willing to forego the bang for your buck if you're supporting someone that who you perhaps like as a person? You like their work, but you like them more, and you like to see them succeed, so you help them out, and even in a small way, at, you know, that kind of thing. And that's what I really think is, you know, a beautiful thing about the comics community on Twitter, for the most part. Like 95%, 95% are good, decent people. They enjoy comics. They talk about comics. You know, yeah, we, you know, delve into drama, especially this past week. You know, for the love of God, I was like, what does MCU mean? Marvel Cinematic Universe. What does DC mean? Detective Comics. What does DNC mean? Drama and cancer. Ain't that right, Richard? Diversity in comics.
You need to just become the next Nerdkish, all right, and roast DNC full time.
I don't know, because I had a stream. I had a stream I was watching because someone said, you need to watch this. And I'm like, okay, there was nothing going on. And then Nurkesh and his crew showed up, hijacked the stream and chat, and like it turned into a real nightmare. I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. So, you know, it's one of these things. But it's like that joke. It's the United States Marine Corps taught Richard Meyer how to kill. Didn't teach him. They couldn't teach him how to wrap his own dick up. So, because of child support payments, you know, whatever. Inside baseball, but Star Wars. Speaking of Star Wars, and kind of wrap it up and everything. I'm not going to go on my Last Jedi rants or any of that. I've kind of worked that out in my system. Got to the point of apathy when it comes to Star Wars, but for the most part. But there are two comics. One is the Star Wars Legends. The first one, the New Hope one. It's a 4-issue mini, and it's basically what if at the end of New Hope the trench run didn't work and the torpedoes are duds. He used the Force and the torpedo, and they just didn't blow up. So what happens is Yavin 4 is destroyed, but not entirely. Like there was enough damage done. Like the Death Star could only fire like 30%, and so it destroys everything but destroys most things. Vader goes down, grabs Leia and C-3PO, reprograms C-3PO to be evil. He pulls a gun on Luke later in the story, and Leia, he converts her to the dark side. And Luke, instead of going to Hoth and also, so Luke and Han are told by Obi-Wan's ghost to go to Dagobah. So Luke doesn't just train for like what, a week, 2 weeks. Like how long was Han and the crew in the Falcon inside the asteroid field, inside the belly of the beast? 2 weeks, a month, maybe a month. I can see a month, maybe tops. So Luke trained for a month. Well, in the comic, he basically trains until he's ready. So when he goes into the cave, he goes in, like he doesn't take his lightsaber with him because what's in there, what you take with you. And so he goes in there and confronts the spectral form, but instead of it showing his face, it shows Leia's face, which is like, because her being manipulated by, it's like heat. And so he's like, huh, what? The kind of thing. And so the revelation of the whole. And one of the best things about the book, Yoda goes, the Death Star and all this stuff, the galaxy is at peace, the rebels have been crushed, Leia's been converted, everything's fine. The Death Star and all the other capital ships, the Executor and all that other stuff are around Coruscant. Han Solo and Chewie and Yoda go to the Death Star while Luke goes to confront Vader at the Jedi Temple. Well, the converted Jedi Temple. Yoda meets Grim Moff Tarkin. Yoda, knowing he don't got much time left, crashes the Death Star into Coruscant.
Wow.
It's such a great comic. Oh, like, yes! Why isn't this a movie?
The needle.
But but one of the things, there is a book, The Star Wars, written by J.W. Rensler and illustrated by Mike Mayhew, is the adaptation of the original rough draft of Star Wars, where the Wookiees fly the X-Wings in the final battle. Everything is very Flash Gordon. Han Solo looks like Swamp Thing. The Star Killer family, they're kind of cyborgs, and like it's really brutal. And the Leia / Padme kind of character from the prequels, because it is very similar to the prequels in a Flash Gordon sense, not in a like whatever the Misa hungry, Misa chocolate, that kind of stuff. But
that's the
worst.
Princess,
oh god, the princess is like given I think, was it Anakin Starkiller or whatever? I think that's the character. I think Anakin Starkiller is the the hero, not the Luke character. Maybe it was Luke Starkiller in this story, but he knocks her out, he punches her out and carries her off like on his shoulder. She's like, I'm not going anywhere with you. And so he just punches her out like he did in like the old movie serials and just carries her away. I'm like, bravo. You would never see this in a modern comic or a modern movie. But yes, the Star Wars and that the New Hope of the Legends, Star Wars Legends, you can't go wrong. Unfortunately, you have to give Marvel money for Star Wars books, but hey, they're worth it. Those two books are worth it.
Good move the needle presentation there, Larry.
Oh, hit the move the needle. What does the needle mean? Needle moves nowhere. Needle just spins around and around and around. Rafflecopter. That's what the move the needle is. Rafflecopter. I say save comics. I like comics perch on Twitter because here's the thing.
Save comics. Yeah.
The reason I like save comics because you saving them from the back issues. It's like, imagine if the back issue bins are being buried alive. Going and saving comics means buying these back issues that are not buried alive. They're in your collection. They're not just in some store. A loan from people. It's like the puppy in the window. So save comics, like save puppies, save comics. That's the way I look at it. I think I've said my piece. I need to shut up now.
I think save comic. Well, maybe this will be my last word. But I think save comics. The idea of that. I sometimes think about what is a good hashtag, because to me they almost don't matter because it's just a way of getting noticed by Twitter. But it also matters in the sense that a good bumper sticker matters because you're summing up what you're trying to do into a simple idea. And save comics is a simple idea that is, who's going to argue against that unless you actually hate comics? You think the industry's in trouble. You want to see good times for the industry. You want to see good times for comic book artists and comic book writers. And so you say save comics. And I see move the needle as more of we are consumers. We buy books. We're not pretending we buy books. Here are examples of what we've bought. So you're right that even people like Douglas Ernst and DNC have said they don't even know quite what move the needle is going to do. But I think maybe beyond just a political point. There may be an idea behind it of it's good to say, I buy comics, here are the comics I'm buying. Even if you're not going into depth yet on what's good about those comics, I think there is a value to saying, here's what I bought this week. You're just kind of letting people know this is something which got my attention enough that I wanted to part money to get it. And Save Comics is a bit of a deeper idea of this is our final goal. This is if you can say the comic book industry is happy, then you could say the Save Comics goal has been met. Whereas the Move the Needle goal would be more of a continual, hey, look, here's what I'm buying this week. I see them as feeding into one another.
That's cool. I'm glad you brought the conversation back to that. I mean, me and Larry had talked about that before on a different live stream, so we already know we disagree, but I support Move the Needle. It's really, I think it's kind of a cool way, like you're saying, just to share what we're interested in. If nothing else, it's just always, it doesn't hurt to give feedback to these publishers so they know what we like. There's nothing negative about it as far as I can tell.
I totally agree with that, and one thing I'll say is, like, if it ain't constructive, like I was torn because that first issue of the 12, the XII that Alterna put out, the post-apocalyptic story about this basically family that's living on a farm and are trying to get by, and a gang shows up, takes all their stuff, their food supplies, and they got to go to Chicago. Huh. They got to flee their farm to go look for good things. The book, the coloring was off because the way it was like, coloring was messed up, the lettering was messed up. I'm talking about not just messed up a little bit, multiple times the words were running out of the balloons and into the art and disappearing. Like somebody really messed up. And I hated, I was so tempted to like, how could this get by editing? How could somebody just like, yep, send that to print, nobody looked it over. But I don't know if there's any edit. And I found it funny that Peter Cimeti over at Alterna was like, all right, I'm taking over the coloring and lettering for issue 2. And I'm like, good, he noticed. I had to know, but it's like, it probably, nobody noticed because I know he's like a one-man deal as well. He's doing everything himself. And the way he talks, it's like he nearly kills him. It's not an easy thing to be a publisher. This isn't something like you sit back Stan Lee style and do the Spider-Man web shooting image and get your movie cameos. Just when we type of Stan dies and then put him in CGI him into future movies. It'll do it. Disney don't care.
They probably will. I mean, they've already been doing that with Star Wars.
That's some creepy stuff.
I'm worried about Disney. SJWs. I see Disney's change of direction as because they're very corporate minded and they care about what sells. When you go back to the 90s, Disney was making the pitch to the conservative, well, everybody's parents, but also the conservative parents. There was this sort of really family friendly, family values vibe to the Disney brand, and with kind of like the Forces female shirts, I see that as Disney testing the wind and saying, okay, millennials are the parents now, and that's the direction we're going to take Disney. And I kind of see that as too unmoored from what Disney was. And this time, people have noticed that Disney has had really great periods and really terrible periods in its history. And this time, when it has really terrible periods, it's taking everything it bought with it. Everything's going to come crashing down the next time Disney has a rough patch.
It's certainly gotten very big, borderline monopoly. And they're talking about Disney buying more stuff. And it's just, what is it? 9 out of the top 10 grossing movies. The only one that isn't Disney owned is Jurassic Park. So it's just a runaway train that can't be stopped. They own so much. Sure, right? They're all excited because Wolverine and Spider-Man can be in the same movie. I mean, that's cool, but there's bigger ramifications than that.
Yeah, it took them 15 years to do a proper Wolverine, and then that's when they ended it, and Hugh Jackman walked away. It's like Wolverine ain't just supposed to slash at people, nothing happens. I mean, you could tolerate that for the cartoon, but it's supposed to get bloody. It's supposed to be dark. It's like you can have a little of that fun side, but it was like Logan was like one of these things. It's like it will, it transcends a comic book movie, and it's one of these. It's just a great film, but everybody's like, oh my god, now you can have. This is the scary thing. They'll now they don't have to have Brood anymore because now you have xenomorphs. Because Brood were basically xenomorphs. Now you don't have to have Brood anymore. You just have xenomorphs. X-Men fighting the aliens because they own Fox now. So they own Predator. They also, because Fox owned MGM, so that basically means they own RoboCop. So RoboCop, Aliens, Terminator, not Terminator, because that went back to James Cameron. But so eventually,
and bringing that back to comics, those are a lot of properties that like Dark Horse was publishing.
They killed it with the Star Wars books, the Aliens books, the Predator books. They did great. Eventually,
that all went to Marvel.
Well, Conan back at Marvel. They were at Dark Horse for the longest time. So yeah, it's just everybody's cheering about it, and it's like that scene from what was it, episode 3.
I knew you were going to the Padme thing.
Like cheering, as democracy dies with the applause or something like that, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny to see like these people. It's like you understand like the genericness of Disney and the lowest common denominator, and they play it safe. They're like oh well, they went crazy with Black Panther and the Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm like, they focus group the hell out of this stuff. It's like they just snatch people up what you think of this movie. And they just focus group and focus group and focus group. But if they hit a rough patch, like if we get another like 70 to like 1985 or so, like gap, when Herbie the Love Bug days, the first Rescuers movie, which was horrible looking, like that kind of stuff, you're gonna see. Oh God Almighty! You'll see you'll see the stuff start flooding. As far as away from them, the flood will come and wash away the IP so they can sell it off some. I wouldn't be surprised some Chinese conglomerate would own X-Men and another conglomerate would own Spider-Man. They just sell it off.
They already bought Valiant, right?
I know somebody did. I don't. The Chinese, Chinese did. Oh, I thought no, not Disney. But Chinese did. Yeah, Chinese are going to own everything. And if you look at China, it's like you don't make movies for America no more. They make them for the world. And a lot of people are okay with that. I'm like, no, it's like everything has to be dumbed down because the Chinese are just they don't have that context. That's why a lot of the the rah-rah, the Michael Bay stuff does so well because it's so dumb to begin with. They don't have to dumb it down anymore.
Sure, and the Transformers, I mean, it's probably more popular over there too, being anime and all that.
Oh God, yeah. Well, and also like just that
they have
simplicity to it.
They have some connection to it, where like Star Wars is a wholly American thing that they don't get.
Yeah, it's like it's Star Wars, and also they have issues with black people, and. Yeah, they do. I mean, that's the thing. It's like they have the inferiority complex, and it is funny. It's like the image. Like here's the American poster for Force Awakens. Here's the Chinese poster, and they made Finn so tiny on it. It's like he's barely there. It's like we gotta put him there because they had to put him there because if they didn't, international community would get an uproar and they get bad press. Because sometimes you can't. There is such a thing as bad press.
Is there? But, you wouldn't know from Twitter.
Well, certain things. It's like
everybody is like, even when a comic shop gets broken into, they're like, hey, it's still good press. It's getting the word out.
Getting the word out. It's like, they have a brick in they have a Molotov cocktail in their hand. Don't worry, this is good for everybody.
this is for the greater good. This is for the Indiegogo.
I do have like a kind of final thought. I know we said like final thoughts like what 10 minutes ago or 20 minutes ago, but
sure.
Everybody wants to get basically the whole Mark Waid situation, which is kind of related to Gerry Conway in that regard. Gerry Conway had a lot of very influential, Punisher, Firestorm, these characters. Punisher's like a cultural zeitgeist. Soldiers would go to war and have the Punisher like during Iraq and Afghanistan, Punisher logo, that kind of thing. This is. This is moved past. It's like the Punisher skull has become akin to the Superman symbol, or the Batman and Superman logos. He has moved that thing, And Gerry Conway, being who he is now, like before this whole controversial statements, not much anything. Mark Waid, on the other hand, for a while, if I'm at this convention, I don't care what I'm doing. If you see Richard, you come and get me, and I'll have a talking to with him and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is great. This is just, oh god. And I was joking around. I was like, what if Mark Waid was like one of those secret black belts? Because you look at him like, oh, he couldn't beat a black belt. I have seen people that they look like the purest schlubs on the planet, and they got some martial arts. It's like they got, are they Bruce Lee level? No. But they could surprise, because that's the thing. You wouldn't expect them to move like that. It's like, what? How'd you do that? It's like magic.
No, if Mark Waid could fight, he would have gotten in fights with like Darwin Cook and other people at conventions. I think he's just a big blowhard.
I don't know, man, because like maybe it's like his warning. I don't know.
He's gotten in screaming matches with other pros. Like, I'm pretty sure if he could beat someone up, he would have.
I met him one time at Heroes Con, and he was the
nicest
dude. Yeah, I met him in person. Like, he was doing the Incredibles books over at Boom.
Okay.
And those are actually really good books. Those Incredibles comics stories. They're not based off. They're based off the movie, of course, but not story based off the movie. It's like part of the universe and everything. But the first one's about Dash, like basically reads like a young kid Flash kind of thing, which is perfect, considering Mark's pedigree. But he was such a cool dude, and I was like, this is the guy. So like in person, great dude.
Yeah,
and
I think a lot of these pros are like that.
I've got a $1 million idea for you. All right, so you should do. Go full hot. Call them Move the Needle videos for all of Comicsgate's enemies, all right? Do Mark Waid videos and say, here's the best stuff Mark Waid ever did, and here's why it's so awesome. Do Gerry Conway and do every enemy of Comicsgate, and you push the heck out of their quality, right?
You could do Kurt Busiek.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the Gerry Conway. I don't think I have really any of his books still. I gave away a lot of my books to some friends that they needed some reading material, and I was like, "Here, have it." I had some, but that's like a lot of reprints and stuff from back in the day. Like, but yeah, Mark Waid I have, Busiek I have still, some, not the most in the world, but yeah, I think I could do that. Like kind of a rebuff it, but I'll finish my thought on Mark Waid. Everyone wants him fired and ostracized from the community and all this and that. The guy has no kids, the guy has no wife, no long girlfriend. He has admitted he has mental issues. If you have if this ends up in a Mark David Chapman situation, that would be messed up, but it could be possible. You take away, and also because I'll look at it this way: that crazy dude who shot up that softball game, that Republican softball game.
Yeah.
He won't a Republican. He won't a gun nut. But yeah. That's a scary thing. It's like, I don't want that to happen because that's comics are dangerous for your kids. First off, they can't afford it to begin with, $5 for a comic. Why pay $5 to go go on Steam and buy you a brand new game?
So we got a question for you in the chat, Larry.
Okay.
Since we're talking about Mark Waid, what do you think of Kingdom Come? Do you like it?
I love it. I actually have the absolute right behind me. I have the Absolute Edition. Not just the standard, the Absolute Edition. Oversized, hardcover, slipcase. Hell yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And the thing about it is, without Mark Waid, Alex Ross is great and all. But if it wasn't for Mark Waid, that thing, it's bad. Kingdom Come has some bad stuff in it. And it's not Mark Waid. It's Alex Ross. Alex Ross can't help himself with the fan fiction crap. Hey, it's Captain Marvel Jr. looking exactly like Elvis. Hey, this is the Wiz, the son of Captain Marvel Jr. and Mary Marvel, who looks exactly like Spider-Man, but with like lightning bolts. It's like this. Here's Sergeant Pepper and the Lonely Hearts Club Band. Like he can't help himself. It's like this.
Sure.
It's a problem to Marvel's the book Marvels with Busiek writing it, which I love as well. Had the not limited edition, I guess it's limited edition now. The original hardcover printing, the Marvels hardcover, the original book, the cover, the dust jacket folds out to like 7-8 folds. This is Marvels with all the Marvel heroes presented, and it's
holy cow.
It's beautiful. I'd never seen it before. It was in my comic store still in the cellophane from like
That's
95
cool.
when it came out, 96, and it was like, oh my god, $20 at the comic book store. I got there as soon as they put it on the shelf. You know, I had it like, and I was like,
only 20.
Only 20, and I got my Kingdom Come at this comic book store. This is the one that had the anthill. This is before they had the anthill. It got worse. But I got my Kingdom Come for $50. So
Yeah.
Absolute Edition. I can't really complain. Two of the best comic books ever made. Can't really complain at all.
I have Marvels as well. It's the single issues though. That's pretty cool.
I've lost Martin Aguilar's respect because I'm talking crap about Alex Ross.
Yeah, Martin's my homie too from Facebook.
So I love Alex to a degree, but he's one of these guys. Like, I got so tired of seeing his covers. I really did. He was doing covers all for, like, he's just like a Francesco Francavilla doing all these comic covers. I'm like, dude, I understand. You're getting paid. Say no to a paycheck. It's like the Phil Lamar problem. You hear Phil Lamar all the time doing voices in video games or movies, or cartoons, and it's like whatever, like, you know, it would be animated or whatever, like the Justice League stuff and video games. It's like, Phil, turn down the job. Come on, you know, you can give it to somebody else.
Well, I'm a little surprised there wasn't an Alex Ross cover for Action Comics 1000.
That's a weird thing, or even a story, because like, I was surprised considering how, with that Peace on Earth book, you know, the one he did with Paul Dini.
Yeah.
Which, and I used to have the Earth's Greatest Heroes, which is that all the Paul Dini, Alex Ross stories, all under one cover. It was a giant slipcase, a little bigger than Absolute Edition. I had that, and I hadn't touched it more than a year. It doesn't hold the impact as Kingdom Come does, for good or bad. It doesn't, you know, it's good, but it's like, you know, a lot of the stories, there's not really panel work. It's like double-page spreads, like Superman carrying a Christmas tree, or double-page spread, Wonder Woman standing, she stripped off the burqa and is in there in her, you know, tiny bikini with metal bra. And like,
that's the way to do it.
You couldn't do that nowadays.
I do love Peace on Earth. That's a good book.
Peace on Earth is really good. War on Crime had some good stuff, but the Power
of Hope.
Yeah, that one's really good too. They're all good, but they're.
And then Spirit of Truth, right? It's the fourth one.
Spirit of Wonder Woman, yeah, but all good. But yeah, they have. I guess the sappy quality, and I like it, but it, you know, it doesn't.
That's the thing. I like that kind of Christopher Reeve Superman, like, really. You know, he's flying around the world just trying to get people to have food. Like, you know, that's sweet. You know, Peace on Earth. I like the real kind of just goody two shoes stuff sometimes.
I can dig that.
It doesn't have to all be punching Brainiac.
Yeah, we need a dimension of that in stories that are this genre, the superhero genre. Comics is a medium, superheroes is a genre. It came from a different age, and it came from a very simple age. And, you know, as fun as, you know, The Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen is, I think you need to have some of that hope and optimism and youthfulness for these superhero characters. I mean, I look at a lot of them the way I might look at a Bugs Bunny, right? I love Bugs Bunny because he's funny. I love Batman because, you know, he'd go on adventures and punch the Joker. And kind of deconstructionist or mature stories, they have a place for when you love the character and the character's developed all this history to them. But at their heart, they're still very simple. They're very simple ideas for characters. You know, a guy who dresses up as a bat and fights bad guys. A guy who has a red cape and flies around saving people. They've gained complexity over time, but at their heart, it is the kind of thing that almost a child would think of, and I think that's that's what gives them a lot of the resonance. I'm getting a little tired. Sorry.
It's all good. Yeah, I'm getting a little hoarse myself.
Well, we have been going for almost 4 hours. I suppose we could probably wrap it up.
That'd probably be the best time. But yes, just
you
love
guys
what you
have.
love. I'll just I will. This will be my last word because I will shut my mouth after this.
Sure.
Maybe say good night, good luck, whatever. But love what you love. Don't it's a guilty pleasure. No, just love it. If you love it for whatever reason, you love it, and talk about it. Support the people you love. You know, yes, you might want to hate, hate buy or hate whatever this thing, like you get enjoyment out of it, but realize that doesn't have to be all there is. Some people, it seems like they don't realize that, but in the end, just do it. Whether it be a creator, whether it be a reader, whether it be content creator, YouTube, writer, artist, get it out there. Less talk, more action.
Yes, I think focusing on what is good in comics and focusing on people's creativity, that's going to have impact 20 years from now. 20 years from now, I don't think I'm going to care. I'm upset, today about Mark Waid writing Facebook posts, aimed at Antarctic press. 20 years from now, I probably won't care, but I will care about the good books from this time period. And I want the industry to reach the point where people feel like they can talk about their political views and not get blackballed from the industry. If their talent's there, they have good merit. I want them to feel welcome in the industry. I'm more in the camp of I want prose to be, a little bit more churching it up, suit and tie on the internet. But that's not my primary dog in the fight. Tee dog in the fight, cartoon dog.
Right.
But I have optimism. That's what's tough. Do you look at the bad in the world and you say, well, I'm pessimistic of the future, or do you look at the good in the world and say, I'm optimistic about the future? I'm optimistic about creative people creating beautiful things. I think that's going to have a long-term good impact. And I'm pessimistic because what would it be? I think that human nature is such that we're always going to like to, do bad stuff too, right? We can't. I kind of see SJWism as a bit of trying to pretend that people don't have something bad in their nature. I think we do have something bad in their nature, which is why you can go back 30 years and see a bunch of garbage. You can go back 100 years and see a bunch of garbage. We're still going to have a bunch of garbage that drives people nuts 20 years from now. But I do click with the idea of focusing on the good and not just harping on the bad. And I think that's a good direction for all of us to be thinking about as we talk. We shouldn't stop talking about the political issues that are intruding into comics, because I think that's a conversation that people need, that needs to be had. But it isn't the long-term conversation about what is good. And when we're talking about what it is we resonate with comics, I think we're talking about what is good, what is beautiful art, what is a powerful story. So I have clicked. I want to thank you, DNC Fans United, because you picked this was my first chance to really get to hear Larry King talk, and boy, it's just really come across just how enthusiastic he is for comics. And I come in as an artist saying I want to get into comics so that I can make good comics, and then hearing a guy like Larry King just give me. I'm gonna have to re-listen to this with a notebook and paper and get.
Well, I'll give you a list.
Good,
I wrote one word, but I'll give you a list. That's all I'll say.
Good, and then I'm gonna do videos on them, and then I'm gonna let people know. I'm such a smart aleck. I'm gonna do move the needle videos, thanking you, Larry King, for introducing me to these books.
Well, you dirty son of a bitch.
That's awesome. Well, I guess we'll kind of call it good there. It was really awesome to have you guys both on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and especially being my first live stream, I think it's gone really well. We had quite a few people watching.
Even though I was trying to hold back my laughter, I'd mute my mic a few times just out of laughter. I was like hoping you'd figure it out. Putting like, hey, thanks for joining us, folks, like in our chat in the chat for the stream instead of the chat on the page of the video itself. And I was like, I'm like, I don't want to do this, and I seem like a real jerk, and I'm seeming like a jerk right now. But it was making me laugh. I was like, oh, this is funny. I did the same thing.
Oh, it's all good.
I did my first stream, but I was doing it with a Geeky Google.
Yeah, if you guys watching, if you don't know, there's like 2 different chat windows. So there's the one you guys see, and then there's one like just us on the stream can see. So I was trying to talk to you guys with the wrong stream.
Yeah. So, dude, considering this is your popped your cherry with live streaming this time, I think you did pretty good, man. You didn't have a breakdown. You didn't?
No, I'll save that for the next one.
Oh, good. I gotta be around for that one.
Absolutely. So everyone tune in for the breakdown next time. But I guess that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and as always, thanks for being a part of DC Fans United. Be sure and check out these two gents' channels and Twitters if you haven't. Got links for them in the description box, and that's all for now. Thanks, and we'll talk to you again real soon.